Oh, somebody's here.
Barbara. Joe.
See how it works. Hello.
Recording in progress.
All right, I'm gonna let everybody else in now.
Is that? That's great.
This meeting is being live streamed. Got it. Got it.
Okay, great.
I'm letting everyone in, so just
Okay.
wait 1 minute.
You can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of allegiance to the flag.
I give United States of America, to the republic
for which it
stands,
one nation,
one nation,
indivisible, liberty and justice for all. May I please have a motion to call to order the October 19th meeting of the Sag Harbor Village Zoning Board of Appeals. I so move. May I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
So welcome everyone to the October session. Before we begin, we have several applications which are going to be adjourned. In advance of those adjournments, we have 24 Rysam, number 7 Glover Street, and number 34 High Street. So with that said, may I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 21st meeting? I so move.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So we have a few items, just some business to take care of, correspondence requiring action. These are requests for 1-year extensions on their approvals. Number 1 is Claxton House LLC, which is 8 John Street. Could I please have a motion to extend this approval for 1 year?
So moved.
Second. All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 2 is William Zinn, 44 Jesse Halsey Lane. If I could please have a motion to extend this approval for 1 more year.
So moved. Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And lastly, number 3 is 54 Walker Avenue. If I could please have a motion to extend this approval for 1 more year.
So moved.
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Under old business, this is a continuation of a public hearing for 31 Long Island Avenue. And if the applicant will make a motion to open the public hearing on this matter. Is the applicant here?
Dennis Downs is here.
I'm here, but I think I'm muted, unless you can
No,
hear
you're
me.
not.
We can hear you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, last month we put in our record. I put a written petition in, plus there was verbal testimony. There was some opposition testimony, and I haven't heard anything since. So I think under your rules, if I was supposed to, if they intended to put in further testimony, that they would have sent it in within 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago. I see Alex is here, but I don't see Tiffany. Maybe she's here. I don't see her on the screen.
I believe Tiffany Scarlato is here, and I'm happy to respond to that, or let Ms. Scarlato go first.
Go ahead, Alex.
Sure. So we don't have to put in testimony. We came here and made a legal argument, and I addressed part of that. Ms. Scarlato addressed part of it. And the point that I made, it is very clear in the plain language of the moratorium that this board would have to make specific findings that granting an exemption would not have an adverse effect upon any of the village's goals in undertaking its update of the village of the comprehensive plan of the local law. And as we talked about, it would do the exact opposite of that, because the whole point of the moratorium is to not have these properties developed until the study's done and the law is done. Mr. Downs mentions his petition. I've reviewed it, and there's absolutely nothing in the petition that addresses any of those factors and makes that showing whatsoever. I'd also note, as the village attorney noted, that there's a third point in the exemption that says that you'd have to make a specific finding that granting the exemption is consistent with any interim data. They haven't made any showing of that. I haven't seen any interim data from that study. What we did see in the newspaper this week is what the proposal is for the new law, and it looks like their intended use of the facility is completely inconsistent with that law. And so, to respond to Mr. Downs's point, no, I've not put in testimony, and it's not our obligation to do so. They haven't made the required showing, and the application should be denied. But I'd like to give Ms. Scarlato, my colleague, an opportunity to address some of the other points.
I agree with Mr. Kriegsman. There really isn't any reason for us to submit anything additional. We did make our arguments. I talked to the board about the letter upon which the village seems to be relying, written by Mr. Thiel, which I don't think, with all due respect to Mr. Thiel, that he had the authority to issue that letter to begin with. And so I think that calls into question the potential uses for the property. And Alex did point out, but I'll point out again that and I pointed out last time, the current comprehensive plan prohibits that use and prohibits that size of a use in the OD district, which is where that property currently is. And I would just point out that the board has released a new draft of the code, which again keeps the uses exactly the same as they are today, which we handed up to the board at the last hearing, which is that use is currently prohibited there. And I think that's all I have to say at this point.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to respond to that. First and foremost, aside from the Thiel letter, which basically said nothing more than what the code at the time said, which is if you lose your building or your property, you have a right to rebuild it in kind and in place. And we've done that. The proposed building is smaller than the original building that was there. The only difference is the height of the building is different. But there's nothing in the law that says I can't build to 35 feet in that zone, number one. Number two, this particular application, I believe, is exempt from the legislation that's being proposed because it was pre-existing and it was lost as a result of a taking by a utility for the good of the village. Scavone had to give up his use of the building, any of the income he derived from that, in order for the Keyspan to do the remediation on their property and whatever remediation they did on the Scavone property. So how you cut it, my use is permitted as of right, irrespective of what the new code is going to say. basically because of the way the code was written at the time that the property was so-called lost, as well as now. The current code says this is pretty much the same thing. If you lose your property through some event that's not your fault, you get to rebuild.
So can I
I'm
ask
asking
a
that the
question?
record, one second, Alex. I'm asking that the record be closed and that the board make a decision on the moratorium request by the Scavonis. Go ahead, Alex.
I just had a question for you, Dennis, or for any of the attorneys who are speaking, which is, can you just confirm? So you're saying, Dennis, that the loss of the use that Mr. Scavonis suffered predates the issuance of the moratorium on new development?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
And
10 years ago.
Okay, that's why I just want to confirm. That's what my understanding was, but I just want to confirm it for the record. And then I guess a question for Liz, which is, can you advise us on the merits of Mr. Downs's argument that because the loss of use predates the moratorium shouldn't apply to his client? Do we know anything about that?
Well, it does apply, but moratorium, that's an argument for you to consider should you wish to grant an exemption from the moratorium. So you have to consider three parts to actually, and you have to make findings supporting these three factors. One is that the failure to grant the exemption to petitioner will cause petitioner undue hardship, which hardship is substantially greater than any harm to the general public welfare resulting from the grant of the exemption. 2, grant of the exemption, even if the application for which the exemption is sought is approved, will have no adverse effect upon any of the village's goals or objectives in undertaking its update of the village comprehensive plan or in adopting this local law. And 3, that the application for which petitioner seeks an exemption is in harmony with the existing character of the village as a whole and the area of the village which the affected land is located, and is consistent with any interim data, recommendations, or conclusions which may be drawn from the study area update, then in progress or under review. So those are the 3 standards you have to meet to actually establish that he can be exempt from the moratorium. He's saying that his case is so unique because of the prior taking and the demolition of the structure that in reality, he's entitled to a pre-existing non-conforming structure and use, and therefore he shouldn't be held, to those standards 2 and 3. To the same extent a typical application would be. That's for you to consider and weigh. That's not for me to say it's true or not. It's just an argument.
May I respond to Mr. Matheson's point as well?
Well, can I just say, just to respond to Liz quickly, which is, this is just my view. I'm not obviously speaking for the other board members, but it seems that there is an undue hardship, but he does seem to fail to meet standard number 2 and 3, because we don't yet know about the adverse effect or impact because of the moratorium and the need for a new plan, and likewise the application, we can't yet know whether it's fitting with the village's standards and so on, because again, that's in abeyance until we have a waterfront development plan or yeah, I just want to kind of state that, but go ahead, Alex.
Thank you. And I think that's absolutely right. And it's the plain language of this moratorium shows that it was in fact put here with this property in mind. This is a very detailed moratorium, and it says specifically that there are several privately owned properties that are ripe for development. This is a vacant lot. It then says that the whole point of the moratorium is to prevent these properties from being approved for development before the study is completed. Well, the study is not completed, and now they're coming in and saying, oh, exempt us. So it does exactly, granting this exemption would do exactly what it says you can't do.
Excuse me, the study was completed. It's on the website. Just,
Okay, but
Yeah.
unless there's a finding that this satisfies it, I mean, what I've seen is that the new law is saying that they can't do what is being asked to do. But regardless, you would, even if you look at it with the study in mind, you would have to specifically find that there's no adverse effect on any of the village's goals. That's number 2.
Let me respond to that, please.
Can I ask
Whether
you a
the,
question?
whether the board has, the zoning, not the zoning, but whether the trustees adopt the law or not is irrelevant. We have a pre-existing right to the use of that property for retail store. And that's not going to change regardless of what the zoning is going to be. They could rezone that village business. They could rezone it waterfront. They could rezone it anything they want.
And that'll mute it.
No, it's not.
It says mute.
I know, but I hit it.
I would just point out that
I don't know who's saying no.
It's someone,
someone who's speaking,
We're having a separate conversation.
Yep.
It's not related to you, Dennis, I don't think.
All right.
I would just say in response to that, that the property is not in compliance with the current comprehensive plan or the recent study that was released. As a matter of fact, again, the uses
It's mute.
were not touched specifically to avoid any direct conflict with the village's current comprehensive plan. So the uses were not changed. Mr. Downs asserts that he's got some pre-existing right to a use, and I believe that he's wrong about that. The letter, what he's got in, and the way he goes about that is with a letter that he's got from Fred Thiel, which as I said before, with all due respect to Mr. Thiel, he doesn't have the authority to interpret the zoning code, and that should have come from the building inspector rather than from the village attorney. So I don't think that the letter itself gives Mr. Downs' client rather, any legal right whatsoever.
Can I ask another question?
Mhm.
Can you hear me, Liz?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Are there any legal precedents for this one way or the other?
I mean, I haven't,
whether or not the zoning should be looked upon as a pre-existing thing or not, whichever way.
Do you mean with respect to the moratorium or with respect to Fred Thiel's letter?
Well, I guess in respect to the letter, because it's really all comes down to the letter, whether the letter
First-
is.
Yeah.
The precedent, of such a letter and tying the letter to pre-existing zoning.
The letter was relied upon by the applicant in his submission of these applications to the village. And in response, the building inspector at the time submitted that, relied on the letter and allowed this application to proceed. So in essence, there was about 90 days from the time that this application proceeded before it could have been challenged. And, you know, frankly, it's been relied on by the village, by the prior village attorney, by the prior building inspector, and it proceeded to the zoning board of appeals, and it proceeded to the planning board based on that prior letter. It is a very unique situation. It's a very unique application. You know, this is not your typical application where you're going to find a lot of precedent. I certainly have never seen an application rely on a letter from a village attorney. Mr. Downs states that there's a code provision which backs that letter up. If he could let me know what that section is, it would be helpful. But the letter, we've relied on it thus far, and I believe the village is allowing this application to proceed based on that. So to turn around and say, no, you know, we're going to upend the entire thing at this point, it hasn't been challenged by anyone. So
More important is the fact that the Scavonis relied upon that letter and the code for cooperating with the village and the National Grid to allow their buildings to be torn down. They could have said, no, you do your remediation without us. But they cooperated based on that letter and the fact that the code said that at the time. If you lose your building for some cause, not that you bulldoze it yourself, but that it gets destroyed, I think they probably intended it would be a fire or an explosion as opposed to a utility taking, that you would have the right to rely on the code and Thiel's letter to go ahead and rebuild when the appropriate time came. And that's what they did.
So
Submitted their application long before the moratorium.
can I, that's what I was going to ask, I guess, and it's kind of a question for you, Liz, and for you, Dennis, which is, to me, it seems like the timing is important because, you know, on the one hand, I kind of agree with Dennis that if his client went forward based on certain assurances from Fred Thiel's letter and the acceptance of that letter by the village effectively at that time, you know, and apparently the code as well, And that does seem to weigh in Dennis's favor. On the other hand, and again, Dennis, you just have to remind me the timeline here. I wasn't around or part of this process, way back when. But on the other hand, how long is a sufficient amount of time that's appropriate for the owner to be able to rebuild that building as a right before a moratorium comes along and changes the rules, right? So do you get 100 years before?
Alex, I'll answer that. It's in Thiel's letter. He says, once you get your property back, you have so many months within which to, or years, I think, within which to make an application, which we did. And that application was made. They were looking at that time to put up a bigger building, and then it was deminimized a little bit, and then it was deminimized again down to 1 story. It started out as a 3-story building, went through the zoning board and the planning board process. There was a criticism. We adapted to the criticism, created a 2-story building, and then a 1-story building.
And in that process, the moratorium was imposed.
And then somewhere along the line, the moratorium took effect.
Yeah,
The moratorium, by the way, let's understand what this moratorium is supposed to do. It's a waterfront moratorium. We're an inland lot. I mean, it doesn't make sense for lots that are on the south side of Long Island Avenue or the south side of Bay Street to be included in a waterfront moratorium. There's no water adjacent to these lots. I got a street and other properties in between us.
It is included.
I didn't want to interrupt Dennis, but I would like to make a procedural point because I think we're mixing apples and oranges here. And the question of whether the letter from Thiel, Assemblyman Thiel, is valid in the first place, and then the related question of whether they should be able to get this variance or not, that's a substantive issue that is on the agenda under, number 5, old business. But before you get to that, to grant this now, you have to first give them an exemption. And the letter from Thiel is not really relevant to the exemption. I think, as the village attorney told you, in order to give them the exemption under the law, you have to make specific findings before you get to that issue. And you would have to find that the exemption will clearly have no adverse effect upon any of the village's goals or objectives. And I don't see how you could possibly do that, because this is the opposite. Whatever Dennis, he's a very good lawyer, and whatever he thinks about whether this should have been included in the moratorium or not, it's not really relevant now because it was included. And this is the law. And so I would respectfully submit that the first question here is whether you're going to give them an exemption under the specific language of the moratorium, because if you're not, then you don't get to all those substantive points.
I submit that when the village adopted the moratorium, they knew full well that the Scavone property would be exempt, that they should get an exemption, a hardship, because it had a pre-existing right that they themselves, I'm sure there's no way in hell that Fred Thiel would have written that letter without having spoken to the trustees and gotten their permission to write it. He did the negotiation between the village, the Scavones, and National Grid. And then he came up with that letter to give the Scavones the assurance that if they cooperated with National Grid, they would get their building back and their use.
If such a letter were authorized by the Village Board of Trustees, I'm sure there'd be a resolution along with that, Dennis.
Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't know. I doubt seriously whether Fred Thiel, and you all know him and he's a good lawyer, there's no way he would have written a letter without having had permission from the trustees to cooperate and put something in front of the Scavones to entice them to give up their building.
Let's bring him in, ask him.
That's not for me to do. I don't have subpoena powers.
I mean, it's amazing that the people that caused the moratorium are across the street complaining. And I've, 13 years already.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Who's speaking? Please identify yourself for the record.
I'm sorry, I'm Dave Scavone, the owner. For 13 years, I've been quiet, but it's hard to listen, and I'm sitting here listening.
Okay. You can speak. I just wanted your name on the record.
Okay, well, like I said, I've been patient for 13, almost 14 years. This is my lifetime dream. And when I saw that ugly building going across the street, I said, not only did they ruin my neighborhood, they ruined this town, they're going to try to stop me from building. And this is exactly what's happening. And that's all I want to say. I know law, legal, this and that, but I went to Fred Deal and I did that myself. And I talked to the trustees and I talked to the mayor and I did that. And I would not have taken that building down if I didn't have everybody's approval and handshakes. And now they don't want to stand by their handshake. Well, I'll end my conversation there. Thank you very much. I hope you realize how much we're going through and how much my family does for this town and what we do. And I hope you vote for us. Thank you very much.
I'm going to just restate my motion. I think the record should be closed and the board should vote based on what you have before you at this point, whether you vote tonight or some other time.
I might ask you a question, Mr. Downs, and Mr. Griezmann brought this up. What exactly is the use that you're seeking? You struck from the record a potential use of the building in August and mentioned that it would be a rebuild to some degree in like and kind. But I think that's an important consideration is to get some perspective on what the intended use is.
We've stated publicly, intended use is for the 7-Eleven convenience store. We have a conditional lease signed with them that if this is approved, they will be the tenant on the ground floor.
Okay, thank you. At last month's meeting, Ms. Carlotto had mentioned that that type of use was something not prohibited within the village. Is that true?
Not in that zone right now, no. Like I said, I'm pre-existing. I have a pre-existing retail use. And a convenience store is a retail use.
But sometimes, and I don't know what the code was that you're going back to, but sometimes convenience store is a special permitted use even within retail. And I mean, I don't know.
Scott, it's not a special exception use.
At the time of the code, it was not.
Wasn't then and isn't now.
It's special exception in VB right now.
And that's what I thought it was.
I'm in an OD district
Yeah, it's prohibited
as a
in
result of
OD.
the 2009 code amendment.
It's prohibited in OD. But Mr. Downs's argument is that he has a pre-existing non-conforming right to a retail use.
But that retail, but I guess my question is, since we brought this up, that retail use, does that mean that he can just, the convenience store use is permitted, or is that a special exemption? In other words, yes, they can have retail because they had retail.
There's no mechanism to make it a special exception in a different zoning district. This is all based on a change from one pre-existing non-conforming use to another, right? Or actually, he believes it's the same pre-existing non-conforming use from retail to retail.
Right, but
I'd like to just briefly respond to Mr. Downs' last point. Now that he's told the board that they want to have a 7-Eleven there, in order to grant this exemption under subsection 2 of the statute, the board would have to make a specific finding that having that 7-Eleven will clearly have no adverse effect upon any of the village's goals or objectives in undertaking its update of the village plan. And now that there's a study online, you would also have to show that it's consistent with that. And I don't see how there's nothing in their application that addresses that. Everybody's talking about, the letter from Mr. Thiel, that doesn't talk about a 7-Eleven and it has nothing to do with this factor, the requirement under the law. And I would respectfully urge you to follow the law and not, emotional considerations or appeals.
Liz, can you comment on Mr. Downs's comment that the comprehensive plan is addressing the waterfront, and that therefore this property, which is south of Long Island Avenue, should not be part of the moratorium to begin with?
Well, yeah, it's in the moratorium, so that's not
So
a
that's
great
not,
argument.
That's
But-
not an effective argument. Okay.
No, it's not persuasive because it's included in the moratorium and it's in the study area as well.
Okay.
However, his argument that it's pre-existing non-conforming and he would be allowed to change from a pre-existing non-conforming use to another, and therefore that doesn't really get addressed by the waterfront overlay district goals is better. And it's something that the board should consider in its determination.
Yeah, let's understand one other fact. The reason why this property is in the moratorium is because they couldn't just single it out and then place the moratorium on the Dodds and Etta building and the National Grid parking lot. They lumped them all together so that they could prevent the theater from going onto those properties. Now, all of a sudden, that the theater has the ability to go where the 7-Eleven used to be. All of a sudden now it doesn't matter what happens with this property. So who knows where that's all going to come out in the shuffle by the time all this zoning is done. That property was originally village business for years, since 1972, 71, 72. It was all village business. And then all of a sudden it became office district. And because they wanted to try to regulate something that was going on what would possibly go on Bridge Street. So this is typical Sag Harbor Village, putting their finger in the dike when someone wants to build something and they want to stop it, they adopt a moratorium and they adopt some local law
That's not true.
that slows the guy down. So Liz, I've been around for 48 years. I can tell you right
Okay.
now,
Yeah, well.
they were doing it when I was village attorney.
If
The
I could.
trust- The trustees would get something in their head and they'd say, oh, we got to do a moratorium. We got to stop this, stop that. And then we'll come up with new legislation so that guy can't use the property for a particular use. It happens constantly. And it's not just this village, it's a lot of villages do it.
I would just like to respond to that if I could. I was a village board member, as you know, Mr. Downs, when those
right.
laws were enacted.
And your
We
board
a
did the
lot
same
of work.
thing.
Excuse me, we did a lot of work on that project. There was a lot of work that went into that study. It wasn't done haphazardly. The office district was implemented for very specific reasons. It's all outlined in the comprehensive plan.
Mhm.
I'm sorry that Mr. and Mrs. Scavoni's plan does not comply with the
Tiffany,
comprehensive
accept the
plan
fact,
in any
accept
way,
the fact
shape,
that your
or
board did
form.
the same thing. Your board did the same thing that every board in the past has done. They put legislation in effect that would allow certain properties to proceed and others to prevent property from proceeding. You did it with the Boulevard building. You allowed that application to go through and you did everything you could to stop the two guys from building the condos and what is now the
Excuse me.
Steinbeck Park.
Excuse me, guys, I feel like.
I
we're getting
represent
outside.
both of those applicants and I could see it coming along every day.
If I may, I think we're getting outside of the scope of this particular hearing. If we could resort back to the moratorium arguments.
Just
that you
repeat,
have
I'd
made.
like the board to render a decision on whether or not the petition and this application meet the standards based upon the fact that there are pre-existing uses that are protected.
Well, I mean, can I just say again, as a board member, it's clear to me that Dennis's application, his client's application, does not meet the number 2 and number 3 standards for an exemption to the moratorium. So on that basis, I don't know how we get out of this, notwithstanding the fact that I am very sympathetic with the fact that these guys did have a as of right to redevelop the site with a retail space, and it is frustrating. I can imagine. I can only imagine how frustrating to be kind of then caught up in the moratorium. But we don't. I mean, Liz, it doesn't sound like we've got any kind of precedent that we can lean on as a board to know what to do in this very unique situation, because all things equal, if the Scavonis had put forward a approvable plan early on, they would have avoided the moratorium altogether. They went in with something much more ambitious. It got ratcheted back. Moratorium comes along, and now we're in this kind of very strange situation. But it's hard for us to kind of know how to act here, other than, as Mr. Kriegsman said, if the exemption has those 3 standards and 2 of them, we can't show that 2 of them have been met, then I don't know whether the pre-existing non-conforming right of redevelopment applies. I don't know how we get around these three standards under the.
I'll try to answer that, Alex. Your one vote, there are four other votes. Those other four votes may feel that the legal arguments I put forth avoid the necessity of 2 and 3.
He's saying that
They're
even,
bound-
he's saying,
they're
Alex, he's
bound
saying
by
even
it.
when the application, when the law is adopted, he's saying it won't apply to this particular parcel anyway, because it's pre-existing non-conforming and they have pre-existing non-conforming rights that they're allowed to develop this property based on. And that's the connection he's
true?
trying to make.
Is
That's
that
what
true?
he's saying. That's his argument.
But is that
If you
true?
need further information as to why, Mr. Downs can certainly request that the hearing be closed with a written comment period and expand upon numbers 2 and 3 for the board in writing if he would like. Or he can just ask it to be closed with a written comment period to provide more information if he likes, and look at it in more detail for you. I mean, that's up to the applicant, though.
But Liz, you just said something. You said that he's making the argument that that his client will not be subject to the new comprehensive plan when it is finished because of his pre-existing rights. Is that true?
Pre-existing non-conforming rights are constitutionally protected and they're allowed to continue. The uniqueness of this application is that we're basing those pre-existing non-conforming rights on the letter from Mr. Thiel, which is why it is relevant to this particular hearing and discussion. It is true that pre-existing non-conforming rights are just that. They don't comply with the laws that are enacted after these rights are established. So that's the distinction.
Okay, so that sounds like a pretty favorable argument in favor of the applicant. That they're not gonna have to apply to these, they're not gonna have to comply with the.
Well, that's what his argument is. I'm not here to make Mr. Downs' arguments for him. That's not my job. But
Okay,
that's the basis and the crux of his argument, I believe.
Okay, I'd like to just speak to that very briefly, because to grant the exemption, it's not just showing that it would comply with the law. You have to also show it would have no adverse effect on any of the village's goals. So even if you were to subsequently determine that he's pre-existing non-conforming and he's good to go and he complies with the law, he doesn't have to comply with the law, that's for when the moratorium's over. But to grant it now, you'd have to find not only that it complies with the law, but it clearly has no adverse effect on any of the goals. And he doesn't even put anything about that in his application and has made no showing about that whatsoever.
Alex, very simple. There were no goals set forth in the moratorium law.
Not true. Their goals
Yeah,
are
come
very
on.
specific.
The goals are related to waterfront, not to upland properties.
The goal says that it doesn't want anything to happen that's going to be inconsistent before this is done, and that those.
Well, that's your
properties have
argument to make
developed.
before the planning board, not before the zoning board on a
No,
moratorium.
that's in the plain language of the moratorium, and it's something that the board has to consider and make a finding on now.
I'd like to state up in the owner days, I'd like to state that 13 years ago, it was the plan for the village to clean up the property, and I was there and I helped. That's all I want to say. 13 years ago, it was the main objective in this town, and I helped. And now you want to throw me under the bus. Thank you.
Liz, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So no matter what the argument is, we're bound by these three factors, correct?
Yes, you are.
No matter which way we come down.
Yes, you have to decide whether, the arguments that
That was what I
all the
wanted to
attorneys
clarify.
are making are persuasive and make findings
Yeah.
with respect to your decision on those three factors.
Because I agree with Alex, it's very hard at this point, unfortunately, to comply with 2 and 3.
I find it very confusing with having four lawyers speaking and trying to make a determination on a moratorium and pre-existing. And it's very confusing to me in terms of making a decision that would be not consistent, but not even favorable, but fair in making a judgment on this. I would like to have a conference with our lawyer and all and possibly the trustees who made this recommendation.
Well, what we can do, to speak with him had just said is go for a written comment from the applicant so that we can take some time to digest. There's been a lot said on this project, area use versus, an area variance versus, more importantly, a use variance. It would appear that the application has come to many boards many times, as they said back in August, and it's been pared down. It's been scaled down to the point where it's back to a one-story building to some degree. The use is greatly different in terms of not being as benign as a pet store, a video store, a hairdresser. It's a 7-Eleven. It requires secra. It requires a very comprehensive traffic study, none of which this board would have any purview. I don't believe so. It's all planning board related, but I think if the intention of the use could be better defined in writing and something that we can study and come back with a sensible reply. I think to what Dr. Willoughby just said, that would be, I think, a practical approach, and we can give this a lot more consideration. If
Now
the
you're addressing that to me?
If you would agree to that, there's been a lot discussed here this evening in terms of we've heard all sides and all different aspects of it, but if that would be something you could put in writing for further consideration, I think that would.
Yeah, I'll
be
do that.
valuable.
I'd like 2 weeks to get it into you.
So then you'd make a motion to close the public hearing with a 15-day written comment period, if that's the board's.
Yes, I'd like it. Yes, if we could, just in writing to.
Submit something as well.
Sure.
Yes, please. I think that having something in writing is going to be better for us to make that determination and also to clarify. It seems that, I'm not saying that no one has been quite specific, but it would be helpful to have that to say, this is the certain use of this property which we're seeking, and it would perhaps help the board to make a better consideration in terms of what that use is. Is it more intense? Is it something that, is more in line with the original structure dating 13 years ago? And I think that would be a better way to proceed with this.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question to clarify?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If the 3 points could also be addressed, it would be good also, I think. Because ultimately, we have to make a determination
Yeah.
based on 3 factors.
Exactly.
That was the nature of my question, which is I just want to make sure at the end of this process, we're not running Mr. Downs and his client through more hoops. And we're still going to arrive at a point where we can't meet those 3 standards for the exemption. And so I just want to make sure that Mr. Chairman, what you're proposing is going to help us not get around, but understand how we can view the request for an exemption as having met the 3 standards. And if we don't think that's going to do that, then.
That's hard to say ahead of time, but I'm pretty sure the applicant would like the opportunity to make that try. And that certainly the opposition would like the opportunity to say, why not? So.
May I ask one more question? How long is this moratorium?
Till March of 2022.
Thank you.
All right, so can we set up a time schedule here? If my adversaries are going to submit something, I'd like to an opportunity to address whatever they submit, since I'm the applicant. So you're going to give them 15 days and me another 15?
We can do that. So we close it with a 30-day written comment period.
So let's pick a date. Carrie, you got a calendar in front of you? Maybe I do, I'm not sure. That's 22, sorry. Anybody got a
I have a calendar.
calendar?
15 days would be November 3rd. So that works for us. We could submit something to the board and copy Mr. Downs.
Mhm.
And then I'll have what, the 18th?
Our meeting is 16.
Our meeting's the 16th.
But I'm sure it changed a few days. Can we do November 1st for the objectors?
You know, I didn't say anything when you wanted us to go first, even though you're the petitioner, but if you're gonna shorten the time,
Yeah, but I'm very happy to put something in, and I expect that you'll object to it. But I want an opportunity as the applicant to have the last say and oppose whatever you rebut whatever you put in.
So normally, I think you would go first. I have no problem with us putting something in first. You can review it and you'd respond, but I'd like to have the full 15 days. I got a lot of things due next week.
So what's my date then? What'd you say, it was November 21st was the next meeting?
November 16th is the next meeting.
16th?
So November 15th, Dennis.
The 15th is a Monday.
The meeting is the 15th?
No,
No.
the meeting is the 16th, but if they have to be in by the 2nd, right? What?
No, they're going in on the
Alex, what
15th.
did you say?
I said 15 days, which would be November 3rd. was what we're
Okay,
at.
sorry. I thought you said the 1st.
And then I got till November 16th, which is the return date.
Yes.
All right.
Just so I'm clear from my notes, this written submission and that's it. We're not going to be
That's it.
arguing at that next meeting.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, good.
No, the record would be closed and then the board would render a decision within the 62 days.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
So we need a motion to close with a 30-day written comment period.
So moved.
All right, I'll make, can I please have a motion to close this within the 30-day comment period?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, that's just about the time we have for tonight, yes?
Yes, you're right.
Let's hope that the rest of them don't take that long.
With that said, item 2 on the agenda which is a sort of a part 2 of this opening item is something we would adjourn until the next month's meeting. And if I can please have a motion to adjourn that until the November session. I'll make a motion to adjourn that until the November meeting. If I can get a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Item number 3 is Rysum Properties, 24 Rysum Street is to be adjourned until further notice. Please have a motion to adjourn the public hearing on this application.
so
So
All in favor?
moved.
Aye.
Who's second?
could be either one of us.
Item 4 is 63 Main Street is Page, which would be adjourned until further notice. Can I please have a motion to adjourn the public hearing on this application?
So moved.
This is actually just adjourned to the next meeting, Mr. Chairman. Sorry.
Okay. All right, so we'll have that adjourned until the November session.
Mr. Chairman, number 3 on my calendar is Loeffler, 152 Hampton Street, comes right after Vax. Am I looking at the
Having
wrong?
a change,
Do I have the wrong
Yeah.
agenda?
minor change with the agenda, a little bit out of sequence here. with the first two items, have thrown a few items out of numerical order, but.
Okay.
Is that right, Carrie?
So you can do 152 next, and then,
Up to 5.
yeah,
It's,
152 Hampton is the one. One that we added. 152 Hampton Street.
Next to the,
One that we have.
next to the gas station. Is that a gas station?
Yes. It's going to, it's going to have a planning procedure, so. So Liz,
Yes.
this is in front of the planning board, correct?
What is?
152 Hampton Street.
Yes, 152 Hampton Street has been carried on this agenda and adjourned for secret purposes because this board cannot act on the application until secret is complete.
All right, so we should adjourn this, Liz, correct?
Yeah, but I think Dennis wanted to say something on behalf of the applicant first, which is an open public hearing, so he can.
So, Mr. Chairman, my client wrote a letter to Kathy Eisman in response to questions that she raised for the planning board. What we're trying to do is just get a consensus from this board so that when we go to the planning board, we can tell them that the variances look like they're going to be granted so that we can proceed with the secret determination. So what we're doing is we're adding, Steve, jump in anytime you want, because
Yeah, okay,
I'm trying to see where the square footage is. I think it's,
we're adding less than 50% of the existing building. So we're adding a 2,800 square foot addition. And from this board, we're not seeking any, regardless of what it says in the agenda here, this has been revised a number of times. So the amount of relief that we're requesting is significantly less. We're not seeking any of the yard setback variances. All we're seeking is a pyramid variance, far less than what's on the agenda, which is what we're seeking is 981.6 cubic feet. We're seeking a variance for 3 parking stalls, and we're seeking a change of use on the ground floor only from offices to offices and/or retail. So those are the only 3 variances that we're seeking from this board.
But the reason this board can't opine on this application is because secret informs the board as to whether they can act, right? So it reviews all of the potential environmental impacts of the application. And only after those are reviewed and a negative declaration is adopted or a finding statement offering mitigation for those environmental impacts, can this board opine on how it feels about the application and whether it can move forward to a decision? It's premature, in my opinion.
well, Liz, we've had discussions with the zoning board in the past where the consensus was from the comments that were made that the variances weren't significant enough to warrant a denial. So that's all we're looking to do is just reinforce that when we go back to the planning board, hopefully in another week or two, or maybe next month. And then Kathy can do the negative declaration that was discussed a long time ago when we were doing this application.
No, but
We
there are
made
new-
all the
there are new
adjustments,
board
we made
members
all
on
the
this.
adjustments, Liz, we made all the adjustments in the building that Kathy Eisman was requested. So I don't see any reason why she would do anything but a negative declaration.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
One
We can't,
problem I have
this
with
board
this
shouldn't
is
be
that
giving
I
you an
didn't-
opinion.
I didn't know this was on the agenda. I don't think any of us have any of the drawings or any of the information.
Nothing's
changed. We don't.
Nothing's changed. It's been a carryover.
I know, but I haven't looked at these plans. I barely remember what the thing looked like. I don't know if.
No, Scott, I'm the same
I
way.
don't know.
I organized all my files today and I left this behind because I wasn't expecting this on the agenda.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Downs, as a new member to this board, as the chairperson, I've not seen this application. I'm not familiar with the drawings, and this is a bit of a surprise that it's even before us this evening. I think that if you would like to discuss it, I'm not sure if it can carry over to the next agenda, but I can't comment on anything. I have no knowledge of this project.
Okay, let me ask one question. Carrie, do you have enough plans in your office that you could send a package out to all the board members? Those would be the architectural drawings that we submitted.
Yes, but
If you can answer it now, if not, I'll speak to you tomorrow about it.
they have
Well,
everything.
we have
So they
everything.
have everything, but they were not prepared that it was going to be on the agenda.
I had no opportunity to review it.
And it's also something, Dennis, that we've been informed that they can't act on because they need secra. So it's something that they need time to review, and we also need secra.
All right, so can I ask, would you put it on next month's calendar so you could have a chance to review it and we can discuss it and see if you have any concerns that you want to pass on to the planning board?
Correct, we can only discuss concerns, can't make any determination, correct? Is that right?
No, we're not asking for a determination, but you
Yeah,
can't
they
do
can-
that. But the planning board needs information, input from other boards, such as yourself. We've already gotten information to them from the state DOT, from health department, et cetera. All the other agencies that are involved have already responded. There's been no response from the ZBA. If you could put a response in, whatever it may be, negative or positive, and then we can proceed with CEQA. Otherwise, I'm going around in circles every month.
Correct. Well, I'd like to ask the village attorney if this board even does a discussion item for any project.
You have this on your calendar, you can discuss it. You really can't give a formal opinion and direct me to write a decision the way you normally do for people. You know, I would just say that you need all the information before you do that, but you can discuss it after you reviewed the application. Mr. Downs wants to come back and present it to you again. There are some new board members, so it might be helpful to the board to hear it again. It's fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz.
I think it's important that the board also realize that there is an existing and open permit on this property now to construct these or to make it an office building. We're just seeking to add a small amount of a small addition to that existing property.
Correct. Well, it's in language, it's in writing here. I'm not sure if it's correct. This is, my associate here mentioned that this is older language from what you've described this evening. So it would be appropriate. We'll get this in order for the next month's session and give us adequate time to fairly review and process the information for you.
It would probably also be a good idea to have Chris look at it and maybe do a public notice on it so we can have the correct wording, because this is now going on 3, possibly 4 building inspectors.
Right.
Okay.
And also it's been months since this has been before us.
That's true.
Well, it's been adjourned.
It's been adjourned for
Yeah,
months and months
months.
and months.
Yep.
Yes. So one other thing, Dennis, is we probably have the drawings if nothing has changed, but could you confirm to Carrie, maybe she can then to us what the date of the last survey instead of drawings is? So that
I
we're
can do that.
sure
I'll do that
to-
tomorrow.
To look at the right drawings.
And they haven't changed.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. So
Just a table.
I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn this until next month's meeting. And in the interim, if you could please get Carrie, any updated drawings and surveys, that would be appreciated. Also for our new building inspector who's not familiar with this project either. So, have a first from him. Can I please second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Item number 6 is 70 Glover Street is
No.
adjourned.
Table 5.
I'm sorry. Back up to item number 5 is 19 Carver Street.
It's Tiffany.
And this is Andrew Tilbury.
Sorry, Tiffany.
That's okay. Good evening, members of the board. We're back. We have submitted revised plans to the board, which reduced the sky plane variance that was requested from the original 1,923.26.43, sorry about that, down to 1,874.01 cubic feet as the board had requested.
I personally think that the plate heights still need to be reduced to bring this to variance down more, and there really is no reason why they can't.
What I will say is that the variance requested originally is under 2,000 cubic feet, which I generally, as I told the board last time, give my clients a little bit of guidance as to what might be acceptable and what is probably not going to be acceptable. And I will say that there are a number, and I gave the board a number of other properties in which similar variances are granted, and I see them regularly granted by the board for far more on smaller properties. So I don't think that the request is unreasonable in any way. I don't think it has any bearing on the character of the neighborhood, since the neighborhood, as we talked about last time, is in the process of being rebuilt on a much larger scale. Some of the houses are much larger in that area at this point and have required significantly more relief from this board. We did go back and make adjustments as the board had requested. If we were to make any further adjustments, there would be issues with the interior flow of the house and the placement of bedrooms and that sort of thing. And I would just submit to the board that we did what we could. And that, ridge heights, and it's easy to look at it from the outside, with all due respect, but we've done everything that we can do at this point to bring it into as far compliance as we possibly could and have requested the minimum variance necessary.
Thank you. Is there any one from the public who would like to speak on this application?
Just if there's no one to speak, we did submit letters to the board. I don't know if the board has copies. They were submitted a couple of days ago to carry letters of support from the neighboring property owners.
Yes, we read those.
All favorable.
Yeah.
By the way, those letters were based on the previous set of plans, not the amended plans that the board currently has.
Okay, if I could clarify, there was a neighbor with comments, although these are very generic comments with regard to basement. I think they were under the impression that a basement counts as a story, which is not true. A basement is something which is at or below grade level. Any structure which protrudes out of the ground 6 feet is considered a story. This house clearly does not do that. The applicant has also gone through an expense to lower the floor within the foundation, I believe, to mitigate the height on the structure. it's not an inexpensive detail to pursue. And also the house is designed in such a way that it is respecting or doing its best to respect the pyramid law. But the comment also came up about septic system and water usage. There's more than adequate space in the front yard to put, if they wanted to, a 12-bedroom septic system for this house. This board does not get into means and methods of construction, but it complies with every aspect of what typical residential use is. There's no legal restriction on how many bedrooms a home may have. So it meets code, and I think that that's important for the neighbor to know that everything fits within setback. There was a question about if there were area wells, they all fit within the setback. The fireplace fits within the setback. Basement is completely allowed. You can have habitable space in the basement. It does not count towards square footage. Only above ground, first and second floor, count towards square footage. This house complies with regard to every aspect of the zoning, with the exception of the sky plane. And to Mr. Baker's comment, if the request is of a nature where it's deemed a little bit more excessive than is common to these requests, I'd like to go around the board and, you know, we can get some feedback and see what the other members might say. So I could start with Alex, if you'd like to opine, if you've looked at this.
Yeah, I have. I mean, to me, just for the same reasons you said, Mr. Chairman, you know, this application conforms with every requirement except for the sky plane. And so I guess I just, again, being relatively new to the board, not so new, but compared to Scott and others, would just like a little bit of guidance on the 1,900 square feet of sky plane variance request, because on one hand, you know, almost 2,000 sounds like a lot, or cubic square feet, sorry. And on the other hand, I know that we regularly grant variances for sky plane excesses. And I just need a little bit of help from other board members or from Liz as to kind of where this falls in terms of precedent. But otherwise, I'm inclined to be supportive.
Well, it's to some degree, it's a case-by-case scenario. For the neighbor who might be an objection, I feel that it's important to address their cares and concerns, which is why I ran through this letter, which they had taken time to draft. And I felt that that's essential. You know, we're members of the community and we do this, you know, because we care about our community, but we also care about the neighbors. And the one comment which came up also is about the sky plane, and if they could minimize that request to some degree, which is potential, you know, to cut back a little bit. There was a comment that the dormer does not appear as a dormer, but more of a two-story ingredient, which has no roof return in front of it. And, you know, conceivably, it is possible to pull the second floor exterior wall inwards to create this more of a dormer appearance. So I would like to ask Mr. Fisher and also Dr. Willoughby what they think of the application.
I was comfortable with the application. I felt that it would actually enhance the landscape in the area. I was and am concerned about precedent and what other board members think about it, but I would approve the application.
What would you think, Ken?
I would approve the application. I think the property and the pyramid that is not excessive compared to the number of homes on that particular street that are much larger and higher. So I would approve.
And I'll go back to Mr. Baker just to ask, he started with the opening comment that potentially we could pare this back a little bit further, and we'll just ask what you think about that one more time, Scott.
I mean, I think it still could be done. I mean, I understand that other board members may not feel that it needs to be. But
God, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I still think that the plate height could be reduced from 8 feet downward, but I understand that other board members may not feel that way. So that's kind of.
Ms. Scarlotto, is the homeowner with you or the architect?
The homeowner is on, I believe, as I said, he is on, Andrew Tilbury. I do see him there. As I said, we did go over this with the architects a number of times. The project itself, we went over, we kind of beat this project up, down, and sideways, making sure that it complied with every other request. It's very seldom that the board sees just a sky plane relief request, particularly on a lot that is 50 feet wide with zoning that applies and was intended for half-acre lots with 100-foot width. And as I submitted to the board earlier, we did submit in the memorandum that was sent to the board our precedent with respect to similarly sized lots, particularly with respect to width, in which the board has granted larger sky plane variances. Again, the size of the house is very modest. We're not looking for any type of, obviously, McMansion or anything like that. It's a 2,200 square foot house. And everything else on the property, including the proposed pool, all meet setbacks in every way, shape, and form. And that, as you know, on a lot in the village is not an easy task. But getting away from a pyramid violation for a second story on a 50-foot lot is a little bit more than difficult.
Correct. And given the scale of some of these properties, it's inevitable in some cases to have to ask for a pyramid law request. And the architect has skillfully done that to make it fit. Just a question which I wanted to know if there is any concern on the neighbor's part for screening. Is that something which your client might be willing to consider?
Absolutely. We do have a proposed landscaping plan in the works, and we'd be happy to properly landscape that side of the property so that there isn't any issue on their part.
Correct. Presumably, because you have a pool, that this project will go before the ARB, and landscaping could address those cares and concerns about the height. What's interesting, even if this board, if we were to ask them to sort of squash the dormer, it doesn't do anything in terms of light and space as it relates to the one side yard. I mean, it could take the request down a number of feet, but I think that it's a sort of minor impact, if you will. Almost punitive to the homeowner, but I would like to go around the board, and I feel that we have letters of support, and at the same time, it seems there's a consensus among board members to push this forward. So I'd like to go around the board and ask if you would like to vote on this. To start with Mr. Fisher, please, would you
I would approve.
Okay, approval. Mr. Willoughby? Approval. Okay. Alex?
Yeah, I'm inclined to approve. I just want to make one comment though, which is I agreed with the comment earlier that these don't really seem like, I mean, there are dormers if you looked from the side elevations, but from the rear and front elevations, they appear to be just basically the erection of a second story. But because it's only covering a small part of the building, if you look from the side elevations, I'm inclined to go along.
Concerned about me, you just wanted ice cream. Oh, I know, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ice
Somebody
cream.
mute.
There's talk of ice cream. Anyway, so I'm inclined to approve.
I'm in favor of this application also. We'll go to Mr. Baker. Okay. So,
What did you say?
Yes.
yes, so,
Sorry, Scott, I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Yes,
Thank you.
yeah,
all right. So with that consensus, can I please have a motion to close the public hearing and make a recommendation for our attorney, a written decision to be drafted by our village attorney?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Item number 6, which is 70 Carver Street, is adjourned until further notice. Can I please have a motion to adjourn the public hearing on this application?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 7 is 68 Madison Street.
Hello,
Hi, Katrina.
how are you?
Good.
You can proceed, please.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were ready for me. So from what we talked about last time we met, you wanted us to try to decrease the northern corner of the pool, the setback from 6.1 to 7.7. But when I spoke to the surveyor, in order to get it at that distance, we were going to be moving it into the driveway, which isn't going to be possible. So I actually got them to shift it down a little more to the south, and we were able to get it to a 7-foot setback versus a 6.1 setback.
Can we, Dennis, is that you, or can we ask everybody to mute themselves if you're not
Go ahead.
participating in this item?
I'm not even on. I'm just listening. I'm listening to them.
Oh, Dennis,
Dennis.
mute yourself.
I got it. I muted him.
So it was basically decreased, like I said, from the 6.1, we got it to get to 7 foot from the property line.
Thank you. So just to recap, this is your 4th visit to the board.
Yep.
We've asked you multiple times to reduce the pool, which you've done. You've got letters of support from a neighbor. You're surrounded by structures on 3 sides. Each neighbor has a pool. And this pool's been reduced to 8 feet in width. So
Yes.
You've gone through numerous iterations to work with the board, and we appreciate your efforts. And I don't believe there's anyone to publicly comment, but I will ask just for the record, if there's anyone here to speak on this. No. So I'd like to go around the board and see if we can vote on this project, please. I'll start with Mr. Fisher.
Well, I'm in favor and would approve, but I'd like to hear what our colleagues feel on the changes that have been put forward.
Very good. So we'll do that first. We could start with Alex, if you'd like.
I'm just looking at my notes here from the last meeting. So the idea is that we had asked them to make adjustments so that the 6.1 would be increased to 7.7. And the best they could do was 7.0, an even 7 feet, because if they had gone to 7.7, they would have essentially gone into the driveway by pushing it down that much further south. I guess my only kind of remaining question is, does the applicant feel they've done all they can in terms of reducing the proposed size of the pool? Because obviously you could nip off the bottom a couple feet on the south side and still meet that 7.7. I mean, for me personally, I will say, having said that to me, 7 feet, 7.7, it's a little 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It starts to feel like we're quibbling over inches, literally. And so if we're going to allow 7.7, I'm not sure why we would have trouble with 7.0, except you can make that argument all the way down to 0. And then you have a problem. So I guess I'm looking for my elder statesman, Scott, who's very wise about all these things, to see what he has to say. But at this point, I feel like, given what the chairman said, there's been many trips back. We've asked you to do a bunch of things. You've made every effort to comply with our requests. My inclination is it's probably close enough, but I'd like to hear from Scott. Sorry, Scott. Putting a lot of pressure on you.
Oh, do you want me to comment? I actually think it's better now because it's sort of between the two garages that are buildings on both sides of it to help mitigate the noise. I agree. I don't think there's much difference between 7 and 7.7. That's much of that. I don't know if making the pool shorter really matters because it's mostly about noise, and a shorter pool is going to be any less noisy.
I would agree with that. So if that would help you, Mr. Fisher, some good points were raised in terms of the applicant. At what point does this become punitive to take another 12 inches out of the pool? It's a unique circumstance where it's not quite setting a precedent. This is a heavily screened property, not only with vegetation, but also neighboring structures. So the anomaly of this property is such that I feel it's something that we can improve.
I haven't voted.
We're not. Well, okay, so we've all voiced our opinion. We'll have Dr. Willoughby comment as well.
I think they have done the necessary compromise. There's no negativity from the neighbors, and so I would approve.
All right. It appears that we have a consensus. Is that correct, board?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I make a motion to close the public hearing on this and turn this over to a written decision by our village attorney. Can I please have a motion to do so?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And this is Cindy O'Hagan, the homeowner. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your patience and consideration. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for all the hard work in working with us and revising the surveys and for the process. It's not always a pleasant one, but I'm glad that the outcome you're pleased with. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Night.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you missed my vote, but I assume you guys voted in favor. I ran out of battery for the second there, but
It was unanimous.
Okay.
Well, there were 4 ayes here, and we took your positive comments into consideration, so.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm definitely voting in favor.
Okay. Thank you for putting
Thank
that
you.
on there. Item number 8 is 29 Harding Terrace.
Oh, yes, hi. This is Christopher Smith, the architect for this application.
Mr. Smith, you're a new applicant, so I have to swear you in, please.
Sure.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay. So this is a comeback to this month's meeting, and we're seeking a variance for a 3rd floor rooftop addition, which will be sprinklered. And we're also seeking a relief from the pyramid law. So I believe that the last applicant exceeded the pyramid law, and there was a request to reduce that area or that volume, which is what we did in this current proposal. I'm assuming you've all had to look at it, but I believe that sheet A9 has the calculations for the pyramid law and sort of diagrammatically shows the project.
Can you state for the record, please, what the cubic square footage is that you're seeking? Just want to make sure that I have the right.
Well, we're seeking an additional cubic footage of 3,904.68, which exceeds the pyramid law.
Thank you.
Sure.
What was that number, 2,000?
3,904.68.
Our agenda here has it down as 3,221 cubic feet.
Is that on the previous agenda?
It could have been, but the description, your proposal is correct. The language of what you're seeking in terms of sky plane is correct. It's just the cubic footage.
Right. Yes, some of our cubic footage is within the pyramid, and some is without. Some of that cubic footage also exists on the 2nd floor, which would add to that calculation. Most of which also is within the pyramid.
Yeah, it's a 3rd floor.
If the wrong amount, Mr. Chairman, was noticed, the rule generally is that if the amount you're seeking, since it's greater than the 3,200 cubic feet that was noticed, it does need to be renoticed to include the actual amount you're seeking, Mr. Smith. Unless you're planning on reducing the pyramid way below, and then the notice is sufficient.
Well, it's less than 10% added to the cubic volume of the building itself. There's a little bit added on the 2nd floor, but most of it is added to the rooftop.
But the right amount needs to be noticed, or unless you're doing less than that amount, right?
And the right amount being which number?
390468. Isn't that what you want? 390468?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Would it
Oh,
be
3904 since we.
3904? Is it possible to put this up on the screen where we can take a look at this?
But, well, Liz, you're saying it has to be renoticed anyway, correct?
Unless they're gonna reduce it to below 32, what was noticed, 3,221.57 cubic feet.
Okay, no, I just wanted to clarify.
Chris, can you
Yes.
share your screen or do you want me to?
Yeah, no, you can share it. I'm not sure how to share.
I'm the homeowner here, Richard Emery, and my understanding was that we had reduced it, and that's why we didn't have to notice it. And I'm not sure of the numbers. Maybe Carrie can enlighten us, because we were noticing it, and then we were told we didn't have to notice it because of the reduction.
Okay, good. Chris reviewed it.
It's just to clarify, because what we have on the agenda is less than what the architect just stated. It's a roughly a 700 cubic foot differential.
Just to be certain that we're talking about the same areas, are we talking about total added or total with outside of the pyramid?
Your proposed, it says that the part 3 of this is at the proposed mezzanine level, which is not correct. It's actually a 3rd floor, is to intrude into the sky plane by 3221.57 cubic feet, where the existing residence intrudes by 1287.4, where 0 is permitted. So it's just a numerical. But if what you're telling us is that you're seeking 3904, it's a 700 cubic square foot differential. And so we could, if you'd like to walk us through the changes, this is a new design. And something that we can discuss, but there's a minor technicality here in that if it was posted at a smaller amount, we can't make a decision tonight, but we can certainly talk about the merits of your project.
But this is the owner. The last time it was posted for a substantially larger amount, and the neighbors all supported it. They supported it again this time, and whether it's 37 or 32, it was reduced from the last time it was before the board in August. And that's why we didn't post it. And based on the advice we appreciated of Carrie. And I'm not quite sure why this has to be put over if we have support from the neighbors for this plan. I'm not sure now the whole thing is, oh, I see it's being shared here. And maybe Carrie can enlighten us, because I don't quite understand why, when it was posted for last time for far more than the 3,700, as I understand it. Chris, maybe you understand this better, because the cubic footage was dramatically reduced, and that's why it was not posted.
Richard?
Right.
Yes.
I will speak on this.
Sure.
Our building inspector looked at it, and it is less than what was originally posted. And so that is why you were informed that you do not need to repost the property.
Right, thank you.
The board members were emailed these plans. I can show you them. You can see them up on the screen now.
So I think there's a misunderstanding here, and Carrie is correct. That it was posted for far greater number than is now being sought. And even so, in both instances, the neighbors have supported it.
point is well taken, and our village council was the one who made.
I just need to know the reduced amount.
Yeah.
Well,
It doesn't seem clear.
it was reduced. Chris, what's the reduced amount of
That's
the?
what I'm saying, it's more
Reduced
than-
it by, it reduced it by 400 or 500, well, but I don't remember. Chris? what's-
Yeah, I don't have the old submission. I don't have a copy of the old submission, so I can't recall the exact number that was previous.
It was reduced by
Yeah.
several hundred. Well, let's see. I mean, I can pull up the reduced, I can pull up the original submission. But this was a discussion at the last meeting in August and that we were on. And it was reduced substantially from the last meeting when it was noticed. My numbers are way different from this. I don't quite understand it because I thought it was 6,000 added.
Yeah, I believe it was as well. I think we substantially reduced it. I wasn't privy to that last submission, and I don't have records.
But the submission, that's what the building department looked at, and that's what Carrie looked at. I can probably pull it up on my computer here, hold it somewhere. The original submission was in July, late July of 2020.
The square footage is 3221.57. I'm looking at it right here. I'm looking at the drawings that we have dated 7/28/2021. And on those drawings, pyramid violation is 3,221.57, which is what is in the turn down letter.
That's what was noticed.
Which is less than the amount of the current violation.
I don't understand this.
39, right?
Chris, do you have an explanation for this?
No, that number I think we're not comparing apples to apples in terms of volume, because I remember Richard, I do remember the 6,000 number that you had mentioned, and we came in much lower. Looking at these notes.
When Croxton brought this before the board in, let's see, it was in, well, he didn't even compute the square foot. He just, it was in the record.
Well, no, there's a chart on his drawing, A3 up at the top.
Now, which drawing is this, sir?
Drawing A3 dated 7/28/2021, so
Right.
July 28. And that, on it, it says volume proposed building exceeding pyramid law is 3,221.57. I mean, that's what the drawing says. Now,
It doesn't make any sense because the old one was much higher and much larger than the current one.
I don't know. I don't know how to, I can't explain. All I can do is look at the chart.
Well, if we know that the current number is higher than that 3221, then isn't this all moot point? Doesn't this need to be renoticed?
Like,
What is the number that needs to be reached for this? I mean, either way, we're looking for a variance, right?
yeah, you're looking for a variance, but we need to know what you're looking for. The amount of the volume that you're looking for.
Well, we have it. I just don't know what was previously posted. If there was a goal.
3221, we've talked about.
322157 is what was based on the plans that Mr. Baker read.
Well, the question then becomes why it wasn't posted, and I was prepared to post it. I was coming down to get I got the posters, and we were told that we didn't have to post it. And so we didn't post it. And that's when we went ahead. So somebody misread these in some way. I don't know who, at the buildings department or at the, I don't know who. And
Or we're not apprised of the entire, all the information. We don't have all the information.
Right. Well, for somebody
Sorry.
made a decision that we didn't have to post.
But you can still present your application to the board right now with the amount that you are seeking and why you should be granted the variance.
Okay, well, that would be helpful, because if we can't get it now, it can't be built over the time period that we've sought to build it. So it would be important to get, if possible, to get the variance tonight.
Well, let's get to work. If we're going to consider this, let's get to work. I feel like we spent 20 minutes just figuring out what the numbers are.
Just so the applicant understands, though, until the posting is important, we can't make a decision if the posting is incorrect.
Well, can we
the attorney's determination?
So this
Can we make a decision?
Square footage of the property?
Sorry?
So the architect opened the meeting with the opening statement when asked square cubic footage. And we have 3,904. So is that what you're seeking?
Chris, is that what we're seeking?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
if we have to post it, we'll post it.
Liz, it sounds like what you're saying.
Is there some interference here?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for this interference to pass. There's a 700 cubic square foot increase, give or take, with this new presentation. And that's not been noticed. But I would like the architect to, if you'd like to walk us through, why is it 700 cubic square feet greater?
Right.
Mr. Baker went through that back in July. These drawings were indicated with 3,221 cubic feet. So we've got more cubic footage, but we would like to hear the application. It's a different design, and if you want to walk us through, we'll start the process.
Sure. Well, if you want to start with, let's see, we could start at the beginning with the planting plan, or we could start the elevations.
No need for planting if you want to go through the physical characteristics of the sky plane. Yeah.
Sure. Well, let's go back to then sheet A9, which shows the pyramid. And in the pink with red outline shows the existing structure.
We're not seeing your image. Oh, there we go. Great.
There we go. Oh, okay. So this shows the obviously the pyramid line. It shows the existing structure in the pink shadow, and the new proposed structure in the black and white background. So some of the especially on the south elevation, which is to the left, there's a portion of the second floor which we're filling in, and the upper left-hand corner of the eave and ridge, or the eave, actually violates the pyramid law by a bit. And then the extension, the third floor above, is about 50% inside the pyramid and 50% outside the pyramid.
I just want to add that all the houses on this stretch, as you probably know, there are 13 of them on the stretch of Harding Terrace. I don't think there's any one of them that doesn't violate the pyramid law. And this is one of the smaller ones at the very end at a lower spot along the topography.
Right. Yeah, at this end of the road, it dips down to the water considerably. So the 30-foot height limit is not an issue. We're at 32 feet to the ridge. And I believe 11 out of the 13 other homes also increase or higher than that and violate the pyramid law. So then if you go to sheet A5, which is the south elevation, the driveway approach from the street, and compare it to the other sheet, you can see that we're duplicating the gable symmetrically to the garage entrance on the second floor, and then adding beyond that another gabled roof in the opposite direction, which is the master bedroom addition. So the south elevation, going to the east elevation, which is facing the water. You can see that gable is the same pitch as the existing roof.
What is that?
I'm sorry, what, Richard?
Which?
A6.
A6?
A6.
Yeah.
What's the total square footage of the house inside?
Inside, the total is 2,420 square feet.
Is that current or with the addition?
That's the existing. First and second floor.
The proposed.
And what's
the proposed is?
What's the proposed amount, Chris?
And the proposed, we're adding 609 square feet up top for the master bedroom. So that, and a little bit of is 125 square feet over the shed, and that brings it to 3,154 square.
Which is below the FAR.
Right.
Just to address the board, the hardship here is that I have rented a house during this renovation. I'm not sure that means anything to the board, so that this can be done over the winter and into the spring and so forth, which I'm already committed to. And if this is put over, what I'm hoping to do is get the variance in principle tonight, and we can post whatever we need to post. We can get the variance subject to the posting, because the neighbors have all supported this in every respect, both the original plan and this plan. And there are emails from the neighbors in the record here. And the posting, which occurred in August, engendered, which was a bigger renovation and a bigger sky plane and a bigger extension, was addition, I should say. There was no comment from anywhere in the neighborhood, except support from the two immediate neighbors.
I'm sorry, but legally the board's not allowed to do that. So the whole reason and rationale behind posting and noticing an application is to alert the public that there's an application seeking a variance, which allows people to come and be heard. And while you make a great point that people have already weighed in and they're in favor of your application, and that's great, that prong of the test for granting variances is not met unless we notice it properly. And any approval they give without noticing it properly would be a detriment to you, because it could be overturned or not relied on, or relied on improperly, really. So it wouldn't help you.
I understand, Liz.
Yeah.
What if there was a resolution to allow the variance subject to the posting and subject to any responses from the public? And then if there were none within a certain period of time, the variance would become effective.
So, provided you made a showing that you met the 5-part test that this board has to meet before it decides to grant a variance, and the board was in favor of granting a variance, they could do a straw vote like they always do and tell me to write a decision. And that way we could notice, renotice it correctly, have it on for the next meeting, open the public hearing, hear all testimony regarding the application. The board could then choose to close the public hearing and render a determination in the same evening. But that would be entirely up to the board, sir.
And I also just want to point out that, you know, you keep on saying that you want a decision tonight if it's all possible, and I understand why you do, but a 3,900 cubic square foot pyramid violation is not a de minimis violation. So I'm not sure, regardless of timing, whether the board is prepared to approve a 3,900 cubic square foot violation. That's pretty substantial. And also, over the course of the process, you've increased the amount of the violation, not decreased it, which is generally the opposite direction that we're looking for when we're trying to work with an applicant.
It's very interesting because I was under the impression, and I don't know why I don't understand that it was in fact decreased from the last submission to the board. And I don't know why all of a sudden it appears that it was increased, because it doesn't compute. But
sir, if I can answer your question, we're looking at drawings dated by, these are 9/29. And if you look on page A3.
9/29?
7/29, 7/29, I think, right?
I'm sorry, these are dated 9/30. 9/21. On page 3, there's the view of the third floor. And the variation is that the proposed master bathroom is being shown where there had previously been an exterior deck. So this could explain the increase, which is a little bit of a surprise, but that's the differential perhaps between 3,900 versus what was posted at 3,221. So it's a larger house, larger addition.
Yeah, I mean, my comment would be that I think that third floor should be reduced in size so that the pyramid could then be reduced. It's gone the opposite way.
well, what is it? To what extent does the pyramid have to be reduced in order to get the variance?
It's a case by case. To answer your question, it can vary. You've got letters of support from neighbors, but this is quite unique because it's a new design and it's not been posted correctly in terms of cubic footage, which is a technicality. We can see the merit of your design, but it's a larger addition. And I think it's something that typically we try to minimize these requests as they come before the board. But in this case, it's almost a 700 cubic square foot increase. And to answer your question, I'm not sure. I mean, we can go around the board and get some feedback for you if you like.
And we won't, there is no specific number we're trying to achieve. Our goal is to try to achieve the smallest pyramid or the smallest violations to the zoning code that will get you what you need. And I would say that the third floor here has a lot. I mean, the master bedroom is huge. I mean, master bathroom is huge. And there's a lot of square footage that could be taken out of those and still have a nice big master bedroom and a big bathroom that would then decrease the pyramid violation.
Well, I believe just in terms of square footage that this application, this new design is less square footage than the previous.
But it's not on the third floor. We're only really talking about the third floor. The third floor is bigger than it was before. I mean, we just put graphically just put one next to the other. And the whole master bathroom is in an area where before there was just a deck.
Well, there was a master bathroom in the prior submission.
Yes, but it was in part of what is now the master bedroom.
I see. Well, this is,
I mean, yeah. Well, I just hate to say it, Mr. Emery. I know these projects are significant to undertake, and you've kind of made plans to get it done over the winter, which I totally get, and so on. So it's frustrating, I'm sure, but I just don't know how we can kind of render any meaningful decision tonight. So I would just suggest that you know, do one of two things: either notice this new size, which is greater, as quickly as you can, so it's well in time for the next meeting. But my own thought is that unless that number comes down, not up, I'm not inclined to support it. And so I just want to signal that now so that we don't waste your time.
I appreciate that. It would be good to have some number that we could shoot for that makes it viable, because if it's too small, it's not even worth doing.
No, I think that what we're requesting is that, I mean, the third floor is quite an overly luxurious space with a lot of square footage in both the bedroom and the bathroom, and that could be reduced down and you would still have a nice master. I mean, the original plan was much smaller upstairs, and it still had a nice master bathroom and bedroom.
That was a purported mezzanine, if you remember. It was an absurd idea to propose, and I had no idea how ridiculous it was at the time. And so this is proposing a variance for a third floor, and that's why it was designed this way.
Well, what's the ceiling height of the third floor? Because I understand why visually you want to keep it the size it is, however luxurious or not luxurious it is inside, it fits visually with the two floors below it, the way you've organized it now.
Right.
I'm not an architect, so Scott, who is, could probably come up with a way to still have it be visually appealing and consistent vertically the way it is now, and still reduce the volume on that third floor. But I'm just curious, could you reduce the sky plane intrusion a bit by lowering the height of the ceilings? It seems awfully tall.
It was 9 feet. The ceiling in there is 9 feet. There might, sorry.
It's 9 feet. It's a 9-foot ceiling.
And that's to the peak of the roof, or you have a flat ceiling in there?
No, there's to the flat ceiling. It's 9 feet. The ridge goes up another 4 feet.
Well, why not just make it a cathedral ceiling, which to my taste is much nicer anyway, and then just bring the overall roof down. You still get your 9 feet, but you're looking at a nice cathedral ceiling, which is open and airy and nice, and yet
you wouldn't get 9 feet unless it was a flat roof. It's 9 feet.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you get 9 feet at the peak, but not on the sides.
Right.
I got you. Yeah. Well, you can still
you
lower a
couldn't
little
walk.
bit.
Yeah. I suppose we could bring it down to 8 feet. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
That's a possibility. I'm not sure what that would reduce the volume by. Maybe another 600 cubic feet.
Wow.
Would that do it? I mean, if we did, it's 600 cubic feet. If we do it 1 foot by 609 square feet, that's 609 cubic feet.
So would you presumably you were pleased with the first iteration of your design that came to this board. To some degree, it has a master bathroom and a master bedroom ingredient. Is that something that you would reconsider? Generally, we don't go larger with these requests, but it is a 700 cubic, almost 700 cubic cubic foot increase.
Well, certainly, yes, certainly I would be satisfied with that. the placement of the bathroom in that first plan was not good, but the size was fine. As far as I'm concerned, the bathroom has to be changed from to go to the west side, not the south side. I mean, the north side. But the size would be fine. I mean, I'm sure we could get to 3220 or whatever the number is.
Correct. I think that this is a good direction to pursue in terms of a decrease in the variance request rather than an increase. And we've gone in circles on this, and it does have to be reposted if you're going for 3904. So,
Well, if we're looking for a reduction in 700 cubic feet, and just doing it simply, if we lower the ceiling to 8 feet, that's 600 square feet. So we need cubic feet. So we need another 100 cubic feet. Would that be on the borderline of acceptable?
we could run to the board and ask, we have letters of support from your neighbor. You're at the bottom of a hill. There are a lot of good aspects to the application, but certainly it needs to be reposted, and I think the board needs to review this one more time.
Does it have to be reposted if it's brought down to, well, I mean, we're reposted. It's no big deal to post it. I have no problem doing that. But is it necessary if it's brought down to 3,200?
If it's brought down to that amount or lower, it does not need to be reposted or renoticed.
But you still have to come back next month to show us the new plans.
Right.
And to make a showing of the 5-part test.
Right.
But I just want to make sure, and Scott and Val and Ham and Joe, just to give these guys a fair indication of where we're heading. Are we going to be, they're asking us, are we going to be comfortable if it gets back down to 3221 or thereabouts? And we should give them some indication.
I mean, my answer would be they should try to reduce the pyramid as much as they can to get the number as low as they can. There isn't a specific number that we're trying to achieve. It's always a case-by-case thing, but I think the spaces they're going to ask for on the 3rd floor need to be reasonably in size. We just went through this on Henry Street, where we requested 2 or 3 times for the architect to reduce the proposal, and he did, to push a bedroom and a bathroom back into the existing house to make the pyramid violation smaller. And we did grant him a sizable pyramid violation, but he reduced it enough so that it was a reasonable amount, and obviously couldn't be reduced anymore and to make the space usable.
Okay.
And by the way, just confirming, Mr. Smith, this is within this proposal right here. This is within the building height limit.
Yes, it's a 32 foot height to the ridge.
Okay.
It's much lower than the buildings adjacent to it.
Okay.
One more question for you, sir, is since this is a waterfront parcel, or it's within adjacency to wetlands, are you dealing with Harbor Committee?
Yes, we have the first page, I believe, was submitted to the Harbor.
It is being submitted in the next meeting, but I don't think it can be submitted until the ZBA approves. Isn't that correct? Am I wrong about that?
Yes, you are.
The Harbor Committee, oftentimes their findings could supersede what this board might have to say. So they run in tandem, but the one board does not trigger the other, so to speak.
Well, we will go to the Harbor Committee and, as I understand it, in 2 weeks when they meet.
Okay.
I believe Kelly Risotto is handling that.
Can I just suggest, I'm worried we're spending too much time on this tonight. We got a long agenda still. And it's almost 8 o'clock, getting on towards 8 o'clock. I think you guys have gotten all the information you guys need from us. Mr. Chairman, can I suggest that we?
Okay, well, thank you very much for your guidance.
Sorry to be impatient, but we have a long.
No, I think you've made up the points that we need to understand.
All right,
Right,
so
thank you.
with that said, applicant, are you comfortable in reducing your application so that it's corresponding to the public notice?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I think we've given you good direction, and if you feel comfortable, we'll adjourn this until our next session.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion to adjourn the hearing on this until November?
So moved. Second.
Favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Let's start with item number 9, which is 35 Carver Street.
Hello,
Yes,
Hello?
sir, please state your name for the record.
Chris Mackey. AAA Pools. Hello, are you there?
Yep, we hear you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm here. Sorry. I was muted.
Open it. Video, choose video, start video.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
We have an application for a pool, also.
I'm sorry, can you please give me your name first before you speak?
Hi, my name is Samara Swanston, and this is my husband, Daniel Newman.
Thank you.
We have an application for a pool 10 by 22 feet. Also, we have Chris Mackey. He is our pool guy, and he came and visited us at our house, looked at the location, and looked at our shed, and looked at our pool plans, and also recommended shrubbery and a self-closing gate.
Yeah, he's here today. We also cut down electric wires, which were over the area where we had proposed putting a pool. After we spoke to the building
inspector,
prior building inspector,
and we put
who suggested that would be necessary, which seemed, of course, very reasonable once I considered it.
And we put them underground.
So that was a fairly lengthy and expensive procedure, but we did do that, just in the hope that we eventually get approved.
So we were previously turned down, but we are hoping that we have made enough changes to warrant consideration, at least for variance.
Also, you spoke to the attorney and you made certain changes.
Right, we did speak to the attorney, and
Your attorney.
yeah, your attorney, Miss Vale, and she also indicated that our fences were not on a correct location, and we moved our fences, again, at no small expense, to be on the proper location.
Yeah, they follow the survey more exactly now. And we've given you a new survey as a result. We also removed certain stone features that had been
put onto our property by a neighbor that appeared to indicate the presence of a boundary, which was incorrect. And there was some objection to that prior to this, so we had.
So
those
we removed the stone.
We had those removed. And that brings us more or less, I think, closer to the present anyway. We now have somebody who does pools, who looked at our plans. He felt they were adequate. And he suggested putting some shrubbery around, felt that would be necessary. He's here today anyway.
An expert in pools with 30 years experience, Chris Mackey.
Thank you. Can I ask, thank you for your presentation. If I could ask if anyone from the public would like to comment on the application and the changes? No. Right. Ma'am, I'm new to the board. I had watched the prior Zoom meetings and I've noted the changes. I'm familiar with your project. You've just stated several things which are quite favorable in terms of moving your fence and the expense of also working with wires. So, I would defer to board members and let's see what they think about the changes. I'll start with Mr. Baker.
Liz, I had one question.
Sure.
They're proposing to put the pool equipment in an existing shed. And within the shed, it's probably going to not meet the pool setbacks. So does that need to be another variance?
No, they got a determination from the building inspector because that shed is pre-existing non-conforming. A lot of the structures on this lot were pre-existing non-conforming, but that particular shed that was permitted by the prior building inspector. So it does not require a variance in connection with this application.
But not the shed, but the equipment, because in the past, they've required the equipment, even if it's in a building, to be 15 feet from the property line.
I did ask this question to the building inspector and he asserted that it was a determination made by him that it was sufficient.
Oh, okay, so that's not an issue.
Nope.
Well, I mean, I think it's much better than it was. We're close to the, I guess, west property line, but it's better than being close to the street.
Just
And
for the record, they were never denied. It was just adjourned.
Right, it was adjourned.
Yeah. There was no denial in this case.
And I think that we would want to have stipulate, sufficient screening at that end. Do we have any comment from that neighbor on the west side of you?
I don't think there was a comment from the neighbor, but we determined that there was some more screening needed on the neighbor's side.
Right, no, I was just wondering if the neighbor had made any comments.
I don't think we've had any.
No comments. I mean, that's all I have to say. The one thing on here, Liz, another question for you is, none of the dimensions on the survey go to the pool.
Yes, we vetted that with the building inspector as well.
Okay, so that's fine.
Right.
So,
Do you have any comments, Alex? All right, Mr. Fisher, do you have any comments?
It's a challenging project. I really would like to hear from the architects in terms of what else you think can be done or should be done to fit this in, to help make my decision.
All right, well,
Have there been,
Dr. Willoughby will have him speak.
has there been the neighbors to the left of the pool? Has there been any complaints from neighbors? Have we received any letters from neighbors?
I don't recall.
No, there's nothing in the file. Right.
Wait a minute, I want to say something.
Yes, sir.
I oppose.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Alan Harvey.
Where do you live?
I'm the neighbor to the west.
Thank you. Directly to the west, what's your address?
31 Carver.
Thank you.
He has a pool, by the way.
So so you're on Carver Street?
Yes.
He's
No.
my next door neighbor. He has a pool.
Right, but I'm just trying to determine where he is. Is he's right here?
He's adjacent to this house on Carver Street. The people you were asking about who would be near the pool are on Harrison Street
Well,
extension.
that's what I thought. So the property that you're talking about is actually quite a distance from the pool.
Yes, it is.
The next door neighbors on Harrison Street just wanted to know when they could come over with their towels and their bathing suits.
Yeah, they were more favorably disposed.
Oh, no, well, that's what we were wondering, what the comments were from the neighbor to the west. So
Right, but those are renters, I think.
But they still said they were eager to
Sure.
swim in the pool. They have a couple of years lease.
So is it Mr. Harvey? You're the neighbor with the objection, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anything that could be done which would soften this or alleviate your concern that there's a pool adjacent to your property?
Well, the 25-foot variance is one of the major concerns. And there is a public bench just within that 25-foot area where people sit. So I think it's a public nuisance.
Except that I don't believe that the noticed dimensions that you're referring to, the 25 feet relief, is not the current plan, correct, Liz?
Well, they did the 25 feet, they were requesting from the roadside setback.
That refers to this.
So,
It's only a 10-foot setback, and there's a request for a and it would require 35-foot. So that seems like a very large variance.
right, there may be confusion here, sir, because the posting is showing a dimension which is different than what the application before us on the survey we have dated. It's been updated recently, August the 6th, and they've minimized the request. So
None of that has been shared with any of the adjacent neighbors.
yes, it's available.
It was reduced.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm at 32 Carver Street. I'm right across the street. And the concern Jennifer Morgan, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
The concern originally was that the pool was so close to the street with the requested variance, and we saw the plans for that. But I assumed that the plans would be shared here at this meeting to see how the situation of the pool had changed. So it's hard to know how to comment on this without having seen the new plans.
Carrie, can you bring up the current?
Ma'am, have you spoken before the board before?
Yeah, I mean, they don't email them to me, so I have to scan it.
It's a formality, but I have to swear you in, please.
Sure. I've not spoken before.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank
They're
you.
publicly noticed. They should
Yeah.
come in through the
So
building.
we have new plans here, which you may not have had the opportunity to look at. I don't know if we can post them, but they're available here at the building department. And if it's something that you wish to see this evening, we could, or we could adjourn this until both neighbors in opposition have a chance to see the changes.
We don't have a PDF of the survey, unfortunately, to
Yes.
share.
I'll scan it in and.
Don't, okay.
I mean, can the new plan, what is the variance that's being requested?
So I'll read this. The applicant proposes a 10 by 22 foot swimming pool at a 29-foot front yard setback where 35 feet is required, and a rear yard setback at 10 feet where 15 feet is required. Also a 15 by 36 patio at 17.8 feet from the line where the 35 foot is required, and 17.8 feet from the rear line where 10 feet is required.
The 35-foot setback is because the property has two front yards, one on Harrison Street extension and one on Carver Street.
Okay, I understand, that's clarifying.
So there is a 25-foot variance request?
No, the variance, there's a 6-foot request in variance for the swimming pool, not 25.
What is the Carver Street variance amount?
She's gonna pull up on the screen for that, so.
And I think that myself and the adjacent neighbors would also like to see the landscape plans as well.
And that's the landscape plans.
We're having a little technical problem here in that our feed is dying, unfortunately. Don't know what, you can't see us, correct?
No, we cannot see you.
Yes.
We can hear you though.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, that may not last too much longer.
Uh-oh.
Val is investigating.
Boy.
Mm.
31 Carver Street does have a pool. I'm sure it received a variance for the front yard setback as well.
You need an extension cord?
What are we going to do, Liz, if we die here?
Can you sign back in on a personal device?
Well, they've got some cords. Let's see what we can do.
Okay.
All right, so here, I'll unmute. All right, we're back.
Welcome back.
right, we're back.
So that's the new proposal.
I guess what I would say is, speaking as the cross the street neighbor, and I'm sorry, Mr. Newman, I don't believe we actually know each other very well. My concern is that it will be right on the street, that there's no, like, that there's very little in the way of sound buffer, or set, or trees, et cetera, that would be on Carver Street. Like, I see it's very, very far away from Harrison Street Extension, but it feels, really that's what I'm concerned about, is noise, and that kind of stuff. So I'm curious about what your plans are in terms of landscaping and sort of tree coverage, et cetera.
Well, there's a dirt drive in between the pool and the street.
But
That's where cars are.
But we're adding landscaping on the left side of the property to
That's the Harrison Street.
on the Harrison Street side of the property. But there is a fence that surrounds the entire property.
Yeah, and also surrounds the area where the pool is. And on the other side of the fence is a driveway where cars sit. And then there is Harrison Street. I mean Carver Street, excuse me. So yeah, the pool's over here. There's this dirt driveway. 2 cars could fit in there, and there's a fence.
And there is some shrubbery there too.
Very moderate shrubbery. I know, because my house is covered in trees. So like, I understand the difference. All right, those were my questions.
Good. Is it possible to increase the screening from Carver Street between the fence and the pool?
Sure, we could put some more shrubs over there if you like to.
I mean, I think that we probably want to make that part of our determination. They don't do much for town, but they would give visual screening.
I would agree with that. Mr. Harvey brought up a good point about, well, his concern was a visual. So if this is screened, and no doubt the Architectural Review Board will require heavy amount of screening from Carver. So we've got a plan to demonstrate the screening and address these fears and concerns would be appropriate.
You can't see the pool from the street. There's a large large fence in between.
A pre-existing 6-foot fence that we built in 2006.
Yeah, it's an old fence from 2006.
So
it's 6 feet high. You can't see the pool.
But we're adding shrubbery.
I remember the fence now that you mentioned it. Yes, it's very well hidden. You can't see into the backyard.
Nope. But we can, if they're concerned about sound, we can add additional shrubbery as well behind the fence on our side. I mean, closer to the house.
The fence actually is a good sound barrier because it's a stockade fence, as I recall, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Does the board want to see an aerial? I have an aerial if you want to see it.
Yes. Yeah, that would help us.
Okay, let me share my screen, Carrie.
Let me just see if I.
Can you see the aerial?
I have to go in and stop.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Can the board see the aerial?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so here's 35 Carver is here. I can zoom in.
31.
35 is here. 31 is here. You can see there's a pool here. 32 Carver is here.
Can't see the fence.
And this just gives you a general idea of the pools in the area. There's one right here at 31, one across the way, one over here.
That's pretty close to Carver Street.
31 is definitely has a variance for the front yard. And then 32 Carver is over across here. And then 26. I'm not sure if you can read it the way I can.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Liz.
The proposed pool is very close to the other side, not Carver Street.
To 122 Harrison, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Not to mention the dirt space where the cars park is about another 10, 15 feet, plus the setback from the fence.
What is this dirt space? Do you mean this area here?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's about 10, 15 feet, plus the setbacks from the property line.
I appreciate the discussion about putting some shrubbery up, and the other pools in the neighborhood are really fully enclosed around with fencing and with planting, and I think that makes a big difference. That dirt edge is just like the edge of the yard. You don't park like there's a driveway you guys have, which I totally get. We have a driveway too, but it's not like that's up on off the curb. So that's not, cars park on the street, not on that dirt road. I don't know what you mean by that, but in terms of the addition of the shrubbery, that seems to make sense.
And we're talking about the distance from Carver Street itself, including the dirt area, plus the setbacks from the fence. Is quite a distance.
Okay, I understand.
I mean, it sounds to me like, is the woman from 32 Carver, are you saying that you're more amenable to this pool if they add some vegetation, some shrubbery?
Yeah, it sounded like that would be an important part of this. Yes.
Okay.
It would be an important part for me as well, 31 Carver. We have done extensive landscaping to create screening for our pool, and I would like the same for this as well.
Now, at 31 Carver, are you looking for screening on your shared border or in the same place that 32 Carver is looking for?
Well, it's more the sound of our shared border. It would be the screening from Carver Street.
Gotcha.
Because that adjacent site is elevated, this pool is low in relation to that other property. So the hill is going to help with the sound mitigation in that direction. The reason the pool is sort of crammed up near the house is because the property rises sharply.
That's true.
Right.
Up towards 31 Carver, you mean?
Yeah, there's a big hill.
Yes.
All right.
All right, I'll stop sharing. Is that okay? Board members?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Liz.
Sure.
So where are we on this?
Did I hear that the neighbors would be pleased with screening more planting?
Additional shrubbery towards Carver Street within the boundary set up by our fence. We could do that.
Okay.
Can the neighbors hear us?
Yes.
You happy with that?
Yes, I heard that. Fine.
I would like to see the landscape plan, not just a verbal, we'll do some more plantings.
All right, applicant, how do you feel about the request to please your neighbors with a planting plan in which it would completely screen your new pool?
I don't have a problem with it. Mr. Mackey already drew a picture with some shrubbery on the 122 Harrison Street side, which is much closer to the pool, but we could include some more pictures with shrubbery on the other side as well. It will only delay things further for us. I think this is our fourth meeting, either our third or fourth meeting. I can't remember.
We're happy to add shrubbery.
But if you would prefer me to, get a more well-formed picture of the shrubbery before another meeting, we could do it that way. Otherwise, obviously, I'd rather get this done more quickly.
Correct. We'd like
We're
to.
committed to adding shrubbery.
Well, as a condition of your approval with the Architectural Review Board, you will be required to show a detailed planting plan, so.
Yes, I understand that.
Correct.
But I still have to go through you before I get to them. That at least is my understanding.
Correct, but the point being, sir, is that there's no lost time. It's to your benefit to have something in preparation, should this be approved, that if you go to the board, that you won't be.
Yeah, I will ultimately have to do what you're saying. No question about it.
Architecturally,
yes.
Right, so if that could be something that we could hold us over until next month's meeting with the planting plan that your neighbors could have an opportunity to review, I think we'll make good headway with this application.
Okay, if that's what you demand, then I have no choice. I would do it anyway, as you said, but I might not have to do it for your purposes, just for the Architectural Review Board.
No, it's not a demand. It's just, that's a prerequisite for their board. I used to serve.
No, I got that, but right now I'm dealing with you getting approval from you. So I guess it's in my mind, it seems like a demand for me to get the approval from the zoning board.
I think what you're hearing, Mr. Newman, if I could say, I don't think you're doing yourself any favor right now. I think what you're hearing, if I'm interpreting it right, is that there's general receptivity to your application. We've heard from some neighbors that they want to see some shrubbery. It sounds to me like they're reasonable, and if they see a reasonable plan with a reasonable amount of shrubbery, they're going to be inclined to give you their blessing. I'm getting the sense from this board, although, Mr. Chairman, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but that we're trying to kind of make this work for you. So
Okay.
I would, and you got to do this anyway. That's what the chairman is telling you.
Gotcha.
I don't think you need to give us a hard time about being a demand, whatever. I would just go ahead and do it, and then this thing will be done for you sooner rather than later. Is my read of the situation.
Okay. So we can get those to you within the next few weeks. New plans that include greater detail about the shrubbery.
Thank you. And it's not a demand, Mr. Matheson just explained it very nicely. It's not so much a demand from the board. This is.
No, it's from the neighbors. I got you.
You have opposition from your neighbors, and generally in a case like that, it's something which is going to be a detriment to your application. We've got to please not just the applicant, but also make sure, that your request is something that's not going to be found objectionable by your neighbors. So, yeah.
I concur with Alex. I think it's very important that you get your neighbors are pleased and doing the right thing in terms of because you live next to them or across the street from them, and it would be nice that you would all have a good understanding of what you're doing.
Okay.
The other thing
Okay.
I find is that, very often in our determinations for things like pools, we often make as part of the determination requirement for planting and screening. So this will just make it easier because it will be on a plan, and we can refer to that specific plan for the planting and screening from the neighbor to the west, the neighbor to the south, and Carver Street to the east. So we would
we're gonna request it in the determination anyway.
Okay,
All right, well, thank you for your presentation and for your neighbors for expressing their concern. And, we'll see you next month then.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Newman,
Yes,
if you could just have that to the office no later than November 9th.
November 9th. Okay, I can remember that date.
All
No
right, great.
problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn this application until we have a rule set.
So move.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
We're in, the agenda is 34 High Street, which is adjourned. Can I please have a motion to adjourn the public hearing on this application?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the motion in the second. Could you guys just tell me who made the first and second?
Scott and Ham.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Number 11 is 23 Suffolk Street.
Good evening, members of the board. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Brian Locascio with the Adam Miller Group, 2462 Main Street, Suite 7, Bridgehampton, attorney for the applicant. With the request, I'd like to share my screen. I think it'd be easiest if I can just get right into a visual.
You can go ahead, Brian.
Okay, thank you. You can see the survey?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so this application was before you back in August. Board expressed a lot of concerns with respect to the proposed garage/cabana. We took a lot of your points into consideration, and we significantly reduced the size of the structure, removing the basement, removing the second floor, reducing the total enclosed space from what was 600 square feet to now 491 square feet. So we no longer need height or basement relief. The property meets side yard setbacks. We no longer need side yard setback relief. And here's the proposed revised plans. This is a challenging lot in and of that. It has two front yards. This property fronts both Suffolk Street, and I can show you an aerial here, but and it's traveled, but it's in like and kind with the neighborhood. This is no closer than any of the adjoining lots. There are houses on the street which are actually significantly closer. It's a tight road, so what we're introducing here is off-street parking to allow for the car to be off the road. And this lot, and in the way it's situated, it's a young family with children. The pool, as it's generally located, is rather far from the house. There's no bathroom immediately accessible from the house. So the applicant's main goal here, in addition to a garage, is to get a bathroom in proximity to the pool. So him, the wife and children, when they're there, they don't have to trample across the yard through the house to use the bathroom. We're trying to do it in a way that's going to tie in with the surrounding neighborhood. It's going to create a structure that's going to create a buffer from the road with respect to the pool. So to the extent now the pool creating any sort of sound or visual, nuisance to neighbors on Concord Street, that'll now be blocked by this proposed structure. As I stated, we have removed the garage, we've removed the second floor, we now conform the height. It's under the allowable 600 square foot accessory structure. We've even reduced, and we now have a covered porch, which is 108 square feet. The cabana space is proposed at 199 square feet, and the garage is at 292 square feet. And then with respect to the second part of the application, which I think is the easier pitch here, is this applicant is before the planning board for a lot line modification, which is to transfer 423 square feet from 9 Amity Street and convey it to the merged parcel of Suffolk and Concord. The planning board was in favor of this. There's currently a jagged property line. It's not a large area of property. The lot, once configured with your approval, it would still be under the allowable lot coverage for both building and total lot coverage. So the only nonconformity we're increasing would just be the size of the lot which would now be 6,228 square feet in our R20 zone, where we currently have 6,651 square feet. So before I get back into the garage, I'd like to ask the board if we can separate this application to allow us to hear it in two parts, one for the lot line modification, to allow us to get back before the planning board to proceed with that, regardless of the direction on the proposed structure. And then we can continue the conversation on the garage cabana.
You're not increasing lot coverage or any of the lot coverage calculations because of the reduction in square footage of the lot?
It is increasing, but it's still, it's
Doesn't
still within
require
the
a
allowable
variance.
limit. There's not, correct. The only variance is with respect to the lot size, because we're under 20,000 square feet as we presently exist. And we're retreating further from 20,000 square feet.
Yeah. Okay.
But otherwise, planning board was generally in favor. They had no issues. They liked the creating of a regular lot line. So if and when this applicant no longer owns it, there'll no longer be a regular lot line that they have to figure out how to properly screen off and deal with. There currently is an easement that was in place before my client purchased both of these to allow for the continued use of 23 Suffolk of this area. So there's no title defects with respect to out of possession or the like. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have on either the lot line modification or the garage. I know it went kind of fast. I'm just trying to be respectful of your time. I know it's late. But again, to summarize, this property, it's 2 tax lots. The client's build on 2 tax lots. We're in the process of trying to actually merge those into one lot. This lot line modification has become an impediment on that. And in addition, the applicant's trying to create a way to get an additional parking on his property and have a bathroom located close to the pool. And based on the direction of the board, the last hearing, he significantly reduced the size and components and relief needed around this structure to take and implement your comments.
I do have a question, Mr. Ocasio, with regard to the cabana ingredient requires a septic system. And did you not show that on the survey yet, just with the intention of trying to get some color on this from the board, or?
No, and that's actually part of why I want to proceed with the lot line modification, because we have to merge these lots with the Suffolk County Health Department to plot the septic. Because there's currently a tax lot division that runs generally where my mouse is. I can actually show you on an aerial. You can see it a little better here. Did that show?
No.
So the overlay is not exact, but you can see the way this lot is divided. So health department approval is something we do need, but we need to first merge these lots in the eyes of the county to be able to submit that application.
Well, you need health department for the lot line mod too, right? Do they consider?
Correct. Yes, correct. Yep.
Do you have that already?
We don't know because we need the variance from the board. So we wanted to first have it approved at the village level before we went to the health department. That's why I'm hopeful that we can separate this application into 2 parts.
Not separate, I mean.
Because I don't want the garage to.
Application.
What's that?
You made one application.
We did make one application.
It was noticed as one application.
Yep, understood.
Yeah.
Liz, can I ask you a question about the lot line modification? And I don't know if you answered this already. The proposed lot is fine on building coverage, but it's slightly over on total lot coverage. So we'd be creating a lot, if I'm understanding this correctly, we'd be creating a lot that was over in terms of lot coverage. Is that an issue?
I couldn't hear you, Scott. I'm sorry. Can you speak a little louder? Let me turn up my volume. My computer too.
I'll be trying.
So I was asking about the lot line modification. And no, can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Sorry. So the existing building coverage seems fine because it's under 20%, but the existing, the new existing total lot coverage would be over 25%.
Right.
So does that create a problem? Is all I was asking. We're creating a lot.
Well, isn't he asking if it's over? 25 is what's permitted, so he's asking for a variance for that?
Yeah, I mean, the existing improvements already exceed, but have a CO, have approval as they exist. So
Yeah, but you're increasing the degree of nonconformity of the lot, right? Because you're making it smaller and it's already nonconforming. So you're increasing that degree of nonconformity. Do you
Yeah,
also need a variance for this increase from 25 to 25.05? Is that part of your application?
That's my question.
Yeah. For lot coverage?
No, we're not asking for relief. If we have to remove slate coverage,
You didn't calculate what it is, did you?
I'm looking at the survey now.
Oh, like it doesn't say what proposed is.
Oh, I was assuming the proposed was the 25.
It'll be more, right?
And we had to remove something in order for us to proceed.
In any event, I'll clarify that, and we're not asking for any relief other than the reduction in the lot size.
You may need relief if you're going above 25.05%, right?
Yes, but that's not
Depending on
the
what the
intent.
proposed is.
Yep, understood.
Okay.
So I guess my question is, I know he wants to split this and proceed with that, but can we proceed with that until we just determine how we get to 25%? Or do we?
No, I mean, he needs to let us know what that is to see if a variance is required.
I can have a survey updated and submitted for that purpose.
Mhm.
Do I, just procedurally, does the board have any objection with? I guess let's proceed. Let's see how the rest of this goes, and then we'll. I understand what I have to give you on the lot.
Where are you with secret? Because this is unlisted, right? So when you're doing a lot line modification or subdivision, it's an unlisted action under secret, right? So where is the planning board with secret on this matter? Because this board really can't act until the planning board determines secret for this.
I believe a negative declaration was issued, and sorry, I didn't handle this portion of the application. I'm new to this application,
Okay.
but in November of 2019.
Can you just submit that for this board?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to, yes.
Thank you.
I mean, otherwise, I don't see any problem with the lot line, personally with the lot line modification.
Okay, all right, so I understand what I have to get you on that.
I don't know how other board members feel about that.
No.
So Bill's busy. Alex, how do you feel?
About, you mean about separating these two into two different applications?
Or
Yeah, or at least the lot line component of it.
I don't have any objection to the lot line change. It makes sense to me, and if it keeps all the coverage limits, you know, within the limits, then I don't have any objection to it. But I have to confess that I'm new to lot line changes since I've been on the ZBA. So I don't know if there are other considerations that I'm not aware of that we're supposed to be thinking about. But on its face, seems reasonable to me.
Actually, I think you better separate the application because the seeker was probably only done on the lot line modification, not on all these improvements. That probably wasn't considered in secret that the planning board did, right? So it's almost like two separate applications no matter what.
Okay.
I mean, it depends what your neg deck says. I have to read it, but you may want to look at that, Brian.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does that require new separate applications? Liz?
It should. I mean, if you want to move forward separately, you should just withdraw this application and submit an application for lot one, for the lot line modification with the secret. And that's the only application. This is all, although if it's already, it really hinges on whether you need that further variance for lot coverage. If you do, then withdraw it and resubmit.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we won't. We'll make sure.
If you don't, then I don't think you need to.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I don't want to withdraw just for purposes of putting that.
Right.
I think with where we are. I agree.
All right, and am I just circle back to the question I had on the septic, because he's got the buildings close together, which is not allowed by code. You've made good improvements in terms of the roof line complies. You've taken the basement out of the cabana. And, you know, it's a reasonable application with that one exception that the building is merged to the garage, which presents itself as a small cottage. So the question is, does this additional square footage, is that done with intention, you know, for the lot line modification to buy you square foot real estate, I should say, for your septic system? You know, that's, I think we got to put the horse before the cart and go for the lot line modification, and then we can make a determination on the building while everything is scrunched close together.
Normally, you can't attach a cabana to another building because it then all becomes by the zoning law, a cabana. And then it's over the 200 square feet, which we talked about last time. I mean,
Understood.
Many times, even if they touch by a corner, they consider the whole area as cabana. So that's one big problem still with the plan, is that the cabana and the garage are connected. Really to be separated by 10 feet, because the cabana can't be over 200 square feet. And once you connect it, it is. So that's always been the determination of the building inspectors.
Understood, and that's relief we are requesting. Understood.
But I will also say this, we've never granted that variance. And I've been on the board a long time.
There is potential, Mr. Lucasio, to separate the garage and the cabana if you rotated that ingredient so it ran in the same direction as the pool. So it's conceivable to achieve what you would like in terms of a garage and a pool cabana with a 10-foot separation without having to increase your side yard request.
The problem is that once we say yes to this, everybody's gonna wanna do it, and then all of a sudden the cabanas are not 200 square feet, they're up to 600 square feet. That's what the issue is.
Yeah, any board members have comments on this application?
I concur. Mr. Baker.
Mr. Fisher, do you have a comment?
Well, we asked them, we said a garage and a cabana are possible in a more sensitive way, and I think they've taken a step to accomplish that. Comments we just heard say there's more work to be done.
Okay. All right. Well, in moving forward, Mr. Lucasio, so you'll present this as a lot line modification and a separate application for that ingredient?
Okay. Yeah, it probably seems like the best course at this is to withdraw and file for the lot line modification and take your comments again back to the applicant about the separation or the addressing of the 200 square foot.
All right. Well, I think that the important ingredient here is more the lot line change in order for you to achieve what you're asking for. And then we can make comment with regard to the Board of Health, the septic system, and how that all works in your front yard with parking for this garage. It's difficult to make a meaningful comment or suggestion without knowing where your septic system might go on a small parcel like this, it's got 20 feet in the front yard, and it has to be an IA system, so maybe we can address this one step at a time. All right, so can we adjourn this till November? Are you okay with that?
Yes. Then I'll possibly modify my application in the meantime. And if I do, of course, I'll let you know and we'll take it from there procedurally.
All right, well, thank you for your presentation. And,
of course, I believe I'm next as well.
We got a motion table.
yeah, we're gonna table this until next month. At least have a motion to adjourn this until next month's hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Under new business, we have 81 Long Island Avenue.
Mr. Chairman, and forgive me if I'm being unorthodox here, but the hour is late and I'm wondering, is there any protocol or thing that where we can jump to decisions? Because those we should get done and out tonight and postpone the new business. There's only 2 items until next month's meeting. I know that's unfortunate for those applicants, but it's getting late. So we've been at this for 3 hours plus.
Yeah, we do have a quorum, Alex, if it's not possible for you to participate. We should be able to move through these quickly. I would have to ask Liz that question, but these meetings historically have gone over 4 hours with Architectural Review Board, and I think we can go through them quickly.
Okay, no, I mean, if we're going to continue, then I'll stick with it, but I just wanted to see if that was possible. I would imagine that happens from time to time where you run out of time and you got to push new business off to the next month, but sounds like that's not.
The problem with ZBA, it does happen, but ZBA applications have to be noticed. So if we did that, everything would have to be renoticed.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never happened before, but
Sorry.
We're going particularly long tonight. Okay, thank you, guys.
No time clock on these meetings, unfortunately, but we'll do our best to move through this quickly. And if we could, with the applicant for this project, to hear them, and we'll thank you. Is there anyone here for this project?
Oh, yeah, are we going on to 81 Long Island Avenue?
Yes.
Yes, that is me again, Brian Locascio, Gatta Miller Group, attorney for the applicant. I'll share my screen again. All right, so this property abuts Long Island Avenue as well as an open road known as Rose Street. This applicant, prior to the change of the building inspector, was putting together a plan to demolish the existing house, which is on the image to the right, and propose a new house with a detached garage in the rear yard. When the new building inspector reviewed this, he made note of the Rose Street and determined that as this is a front yard, this no longer meets setback. So that required us to come before this board. This project otherwise has received the building permit for the principal dwelling, and the applicant is proceeding on that application. It's absent this unopened Rose Street, this would be a conforming location. It meets rear yard lot coverage and meets what would have been the accessory setback, but due to Rose Street and I won't say misguidance, but just a miss of this in their planning under the prior building inspector. They were led to believe that this was an as-of-right application only when they recently submitted for the building permit, and the new building inspector reviewed his interpretation as to Rose Street was a front yard. So here we are. I mean, this is certainly not a self-created hardship. It's a 33-foot wide unopened road. I can show you an aerial. The lot to both the left and the right have garages, arguably on Rose Street for the condos, very close. The lot to the left. This is differentiating different in that we have a small flag strip from our lot that runs to Garden. So this is not truly on Rose Avenue, but it's going to be in like and con with the neighborhood. It's otherwise conforms to code size, or setbacks. I only received one call from one of the condo owners, which was the applicant closest to the water, and his concern was just any view on infringement on his view. And the house, due to FEMA, is actually retreating, which is another constraint that this applicant had to deal with in situating the property in the X zone. The whole structure was pushed backwards away from Long Island Avenue, so kind of constrained the rear yard. Otherwise, it's I don't see that there's any detriment to the neighborhood. It's a densely vegetated area between the most impacted neighbor across Rose Street. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, well, we'd like to turn it over to the public for comment. If there's a neighbor who would like to comment on this. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak?
I don't see anybody.
This is a theory of the parts in house.
They already took that. All right.
Yeah, I've seen it. It looks like that part of the house is still there.
So,
but we're only interested in the garage.
yeah. So how would you mitigate the concern of you mentioned a neighbor of the condo in terms of screening? Is that something?
Well, when I explained where it was located, the issue resolved itself because he is along Long Island Avenue, the northwestern corner of that property. So it's not anywhere near where the garage is located. It's being placed essentially next to the condo unit's garage. And that was it. He had no concerns. His only concern was with respect to view and his views of the water specifically. And that's not that vantage point. It's in the other direction. And when he learned that the house was actually retreating from the street as a whole, he was pleased.
Liz?
Yes.
The 5-foot separation between driveway and property line is still in effect, correct?
I believe so, unless I'd have to ask the building inspector, but I believe so.
Yeah, it looks like the one thing I noticed is your proposed driveway is too close to the property line. Then the only other question I had is I don't understand where the rear yard is. I would say there are 2 front yards and side yards. I don't understand why there's a rear yard. Where's the rear yard? If there are 2 streets.
I don't believe there is one. That's why I was kind of questioning because we believe this to be in the rear yard based on our conversations with the prior building inspector. He did not view the unopened Rose Street as a front yard. And with that in mind, this structure met the required setbacks for an accessory structure in the rear yard.
But we've got 2 things. We've got it in the front yard and we've got it in the rear yard. It can't be both.
Yeah, well, the current building inspector is determining this as a front yard. So that's the relief we need. Because
right. Our determination also asks us to grant a variance for rear yard.
And yeah, I don't know where that came from, but I can share the survey to show what would be the rear yard calculation, and it's 10.3%, but I don't even believe that to be relevant because.
Right.
So
what does it do with that? That's a question for Liz.
Yep. My understanding is we need approval for an accessory structure in the front yard to be located 24.7 feet where 35 is required.
Right. That's what I would say.
And that's what I interpreted.
Yeah, I don't know where the rear yard coverage came from. It looks like it meets it. So maybe that was.
Yeah, agreed. Assuming this was a rear yard, which I then think would change the whole conversation, but it does meet the rear yard coverage.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe it was just a typo. Sorry.
But it can't be.
It's okay.
In the rear yard.
Well, I'll confirm it for sure.
That doesn't make sense to me. Otherwise, I don't have a problem with it. I think you need to correct the driveway.
So we seem to show the driveway 5 feet from the property line.
Right, this actually It appears to be a grass strip. There are 2 tire strips for the drive. I'm not sure if that's the case, but it doesn't appear to be a paved driveway.
It's a gravel down by the
Parking.
garage and exactly, you're correct.
So is there, as long as there's enough room for screening, I don't see any issue with this. But we should clarify the legal definition for a determination when that time comes. You do have a front yard and a rear yard.
But how can it be in both a front yard and a rear yard? I don't understand that. A front yard is a front yard, a rear yard is a rear yard.
It's not a rear, it must be opposite.
But if you have a front yard, it can't be a rear yard. You can't have something in both a rear yard and a front yard. If this is a street, that's a front yard. You can't have. It's
2
saying-
fronts and 2 rears. 2 fronts.
But that's not how the way they do it. There's always
Usually
a front yard, like if on a corner lot, there are no side yards. There are front yards and rear yards, no side yards.
Right. 2 fronts and 2 rears.
So this, in our through streets, we always have 2 fronts and sides, not rears.
Because this is a flag lot, could we get determine our rear yard to be where the garage is? And then just,
Well, the flag still is adjacent to Rose Street. Even the flag is considered part of the front yard because it's on.
agreed. I know like in certain municipalities, you can, if you have a flag lot, you can actually determine what is the front and rear yard. I just don't know if that's maybe a way we could
I mean, we can do
address
whatever.
that question.
It just seems weird to me that something is both in a front yard and a rear yard. That I don't.
We're happy to accept that as a rear yard, but that was not the determination from the building inspector, so, which, understandably so, because it's fronting Rose Street. And, I'm not necessarily questioning that, I just.
If we could move on and clarify what exactly it is that would go into a determination, then I think we can move forward, adjourn this and move forward with better definition of what you're seeking, assuming that the other board members are comfortable with the application.
Well, okay, I mean, we applied for accessory structure in the front yard located 24.7 feet where 35 is required.
Well, Liz, couldn't we do a determination? I mean, could we do the determination, just based on what we know with conditions?
You can.
Because it
Yes.
seems that it has to be one or the other.
Yes, you can make the determination. You are the appellate review for any interpretation of the building inspector or a mistake, you can correct it and move forward with what you want to decide. You
So
can.
we decide if it's a rear.
You can also condition your applications and decisions as long as the condition is reasonably related to what you're trying to mitigate, so.
So we can either decide as a body if it's a front yard or a rear yard, or leave it as both and proceed. We don't need to adjourn.
You can proceed, yes, you can decide that and proceed.
We have in writing with what the building inspector determined, both a front and a rear. And I'm inclined to go with that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
We just need to stipulate that as part of this, that the parking area will be 5 feet from the property line. That would be my.
So the driveway has to be 5 feet, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's just the parking area in proximity to the garage, because like Val pointed out, the driveway narrows as you drive past in the 2 kind of gravel tire lanes.
Okay.
But we can modify that and I could submit that revised.
You could submit. The decision is being written.
Okay.
All right.
Echo, is that a request or just an echo?
I'm in agreement with that. I think if the decision, if a survey can be submitted in tandem with a written decision, then perhaps we could move forward with this if Liz agrees.
Sure, that's fine. That's fine.
Great.
Good. Can I have a motion to approve this application as we discussed?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a good night.
Thank you, Brian. Have a great night.
Yeah, we've closed the hearing on this matter, and I'd like to make a motion for Liz to proceed with a written decision.
So moved.
Are they gone?
Yeah, I don't see them anymore.
Oh, there they are. Yeah.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay, we're back.
Okay.
A little technical difficulty.
Alex made a motion
For what?
to direct me to write a decision in favor.
I
You need a second and you need a vote.
I second it.
Scott made the motion.
Okay, so we need to vote. Yes, in favor, aye.
I,
So Anthony's on that.
Business.
Good evening.
I don't, is it just me, but I can't hear the chairman speaking?
I can't either.
Okay.
You can hear now?
Yeah.
What's that? Yes.
Yeah. It's very low though. I can't hear.
Okay, hold on. We have to bring it.
Here now?
Yes.
Yes. Better.
So Anthony, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, Anthony Vermandois, 68 Union Street, representing the owners of 39 Suffolk Street. So I think I want to just hop right to screen sharing if I could, Carrie.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. All right, can you folks see the survey here?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So so what we have here is in the yellow is the existing house. There is in just white here with the red label, that is an existing one-story bump out addition. There's sort of this sort of funny gap here between this one-story addition and the two-story main body of the house. And then there's all, so basically what we're planning, what we would like to do is just basically fill in this gap and extend out slightly to the, I believe it's to the east in this direction. So that's going to require a setback variance and a pyramid variance. Just going to go quickly through a couple of other things here, then get to the details of what we're doing here. On the back of the house, there is an external staircase. The property drops off quite a bit from the front yard to the backyard. So there is a staircase, a little bump out sort of vestibule from the first floor, which leads to a staircase that goes down to the cellar level. We're proposing to remove that completely. We're also proposing to remove an existing deck by the existing swimming pool. So what that's going to do is our total building coverage is going to go up slightly, but it will still be under 20%. And we'll actually have a small net reduction of total yard lot coverage. So just want to go into the floor plans here. Trying to do this quickly because I know it's getting late for everybody. So dynamic zoom here. Okay, so here's the first floor plan. So the area in question is here. This dotted line represents the existing bump out. So what we're proposing to do is fill in 7'4" here, and then coming out 2'3" here. But this will actually be pulled in by 9 inches from the edge of the existing bump out. What we are proposing to do on the second floor is also a small bump out addition here, which will not be pushed out to the full footprint of the 1-story bump out. It's set back about 2 feet from this side, and I think about 4 feet from that side. Just kind of going into the elevations. So this is really the area in question here. Here's where that little funny 1-story bump out is. So we're filling in here, adding slightly over here, and then this 2nd-story bump out, which is set back from the 1-story bump out. And from this elevation, I think you can see a little bit better what it's doing in terms of sky plane. I also have the color-coded ones, but I think the black and white is frankly a little more informative. Here's the main body of the house here, what you see on Suffolk Street. Nothing there is being changed. This is a little existing 1-story bump out closer to Suffolk Street. This is really where we're doing the work. So we've got the 2nd-story bump out dormer shape, and then of course the 1-story here. Once again, that's it from the side. What this basically is doing is there isn't any internal access to the cellar from the inside. So what this will do will basically allow the homeowners to have an internal staircase to the cellar level, and then also just reconfiguring an existing powder room and laundry room, but basically the same function, just reconfigured in shape. And the 2nd floor is basically just a big walk-in, not even really big, but just a walk-in closet. So that's it. That's what we're proposing. A few other minor changes that to the other side of the house that don't require variances.
Thank you, Anthony. Are there any comments from the public? Anthony,
can you review very briefly the sky plane intrusion?
Sure, it is. It's exactly
with the map. I mean, I'm looking at my copy here, but I just want you to walk us through.
Sure. you want to maybe go to the colored one here, SK1 there. We just rotate this, give me a sec. So the red here is the sky plane addition. As you're looking at the house from the rear, this is the sky plane as you're looking at it from the side. Why is this little yellow box here? That's the existing bump out. So that's, it's what we're doing is basically building around that, which is already partially non-conforming. The total cubic footage of that is 859 cubic feet. 859? Just read my notes here. 856 cubic feet, sorry. So, I mean, that's under, what you folks have generally been approving. If anybody is talking, I can't hear you. So I know you're having some audio issues.
We have to open it to the public.
Prior to Alex speaking, I don't know if you can hear now, but we did ask if the public would like to comment. I'll ask again.
I'm sorry, Val, I can't hear anything.
Val, you're muffled.
Yeah, and the sound here is muffled too.
I have a question while they're straightening that out for you. And that is the rear yard setback. Am I missing something? For the swimming pool, it's supposed to be 15 feet and you want it to be 8.8 feet, but on here it looks like.
The swimming pool is existing. Swimming pool is existing. The pool house is existing. We're not doing anything there except we're removing an existing deck there to give us some lot coverage. But
Yeah,
the pool itself is.
I was looking.
Can you hear?
I was looking at the top of the previous page, so I was reading the wrong numbers for a different case. Sorry about that.
Okay, sorry.
Can you hear us now?
Now I can.
Yes,
yeah.
I can.
Can you?
Hello, can you hear?
So, Liz,
Yes.
can I just ask a clarifying question? Numbers, variance requests numbers 2 and 3 regarding lot coverage, or sorry, 2 regarding lot coverage, says the coverage is to remain at 3188 square feet, or 27.92%, where 2854 or 25% is permitted. Do they have to kind of affirmatively get a variance there, even if that's pre-existing, that lot
Yes.
coverage? They do.
Yes, because they're changing the coverage. They're changing it.
Okay.
So they're swapping out something for something else.
Yeah. Liz, if I understand, it's because if we had just added the addition, we would have increased the lot coverage. So what we're doing is we're taking away a deck and a little existing bump out on the back of the house and a staircase, and that's bringing us down to slightly less than what the existing lot coverage is.
Okay.
So
Okay.
can you
Thanks
hear-
for the clarification.
Sure.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Yes, but you're muffled.
Muffled, but yes. You were great before, Val. I don't know what changed, but you came in loud and clear when Carrie made the introduction.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you
now I can hear
perfectly.
you, Carrie.
You're perfect.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I was just gonna say, I'm fine with everything.
Me too.
Okay. All right.
Here.
Thanks.
Well,
I just wanted to know the number one.
can you hear Ham?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So the second floor, 4.5 feet, that's non-conforming from the first floor?
Basically, yes, because you're building over an existing
Non-conforming.
non-conforming setback and not increasing it, but maintaining it.
Right.
All right, thank you.
I can't hear her
So-
speaking.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Did you open it to the public? I
Well,
can't-
maybe they didn't hear us though.
Yeah, could you do it again, please?
So is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this application?
Thank you.
We know. Oh, you're having to.
There's no response. I can't hear anything. No, Carrie, we can't really hear you. Maybe we should adjourn this to the next meeting. We haven't heard a lot of what you've said. So if someone could make a motion to adjourn it.
Liz, can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. So it looks like they want to motion
Now there's a terrible echo.
One of these should be turned off.
Yeah.
I think that happens when you have too many microphones near each other.
I guess we should turn this one off.
No, it's bad echo.
So is the echo gone? No. Does your thing work?
How about now?
We hear an echo because you're too close to the other.
Can you hear us now?
Now it's fine. Yeah, now I can.
Hello?
Okay. So I think that what we had determined was that we have enough yes votes to go to a decision. So we would make let Val take over.
Yes, so I think based on all of there's a consensus among the board. And I would say that we can make a motion for this to go to a written decision. If I can please have someone make that motion.
I so move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We're just
We have decisions.
going to
Thank you.
decisions, which we have one. The first one, Liz, is for 11 Washington Street. And per your email, you had mentioned if the applicant may or may not wish to withdraw the project. So,
Yes, I have to adjourn 11 Washington. I didn't finish writing it for this evening. But I think the applicant is considering whether or not they want to withdraw the application. Regardless,
Okay.
it's not written, so we can't adopt it tonight, but we can move on to 36 Hamilton.
great. So decision number 2 is 36 Hamilton. If I can please have a motion for our attorney to do a summary of the written decision.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, so the property is located at 36 Hamilton Street. It's a 5,850 square foot lot located in the R20 zoning district. The property is non-conforming with respect to lot area. The application is to construct a pool proposed at 7 feet, where 15 feet is required for the rear yard, and the side yard setback to be 7 feet where 15 feet is required also. and to continue the lot coverage to remain at 35.65%. And that would just be from swapping out coverage. The subject property is also the subject of prior ZBA determinations, with the last one in 2019, which allowed the two principal structures to be joined at the rear of two residences to create one single-family residence and merge the properties. Now the lot comes before the board to allow for a pool where an existing patio is. Given the size of the merged lots at 5,850 square feet and the placement of the existing structures on site, as well as the preservation of a 200-year-old historic tree, the proposed pool could not be shifted away from the property lines any further. Additionally, the applicant had the support of surrounding neighbors. Therefore, for the reasons set forth in the written determination, the board determines to hereby grant the requested variances. So we need a vote.
Do we make a motion or a vote?
Motion.
Yeah, all right. Make a motion to approve this written decision.
I second.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Final item of the evening is 7 Cadmus Road. Can I please have a motion for our village attorney to read a summary of the written decision?
So move. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So 7 Cadmus, this is an application for a pool where the subject property is 9,266 square feet in the R20 zoning district. Therefore, the property is non-conforming with respect to lot area. Variances are necessary to allow the proposed pool to be located in a front yard where accessory structures are prohibited, to allow the proposed retaining wall to be located 34.3 feet from the front yard where 35 feet is required, and to allow the proposed window wells to be 26 feet from the front yard where 35 feet is required. The property has 2 front yards on Cadmus Road and Meredith Avenue. The pool only requires a variance because of the 2 front yards, and it meets all other dimensional requirements. The retaining wall variance is minor at 0.7 feet, and the setbacks for the window wells is increased due to the second front yard setback requirement where they're proposed on Meredith Avenue. Therefore, the board finds that the benefit to the applicant far outweighs any detriment to the neighborhood and grants the variance requests pursuant to the written determination.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion to approve the written decision?
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And now, can I please have a motion to close this October session of the Board of Zoning Appeals?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
What happened to Washington?
Good night, everyone.